Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Vice Chair here.
Good morning. Good morning. We will go ahead and we are actually just reconvening this meeting from yesterday's meeting. So with that, let me have Ms. Davis please call the roll.
Chairman Vasquez.
Present.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Present.
Member Gaines.
Present.
Member Cohen. We will make note of her absence. Deputy Controller Stowers.
Present.
So we do have a quorum. We will go ahead and get started. Once again, just another friendly reminder, members, that we are all on the same line, including the speakers are all simultaneously sharing this one teleconference line. So your patience is needed, and we appreciate it if you would just identify yourself and be recognized so we can have the transcriptionists make sure that they're taking good notes and documenting this meeting for our minutes and for the record. With that, Ms. Davis, if you would please announce our first order of business.
Now, when you go down, you have to touch.
Don't forget to mute your mics if you're not speaking, folks, especially the members. Ms. Davis, are you available?
Yes. Our first order of business is an announcement from our Chief of Legal Department, Henry Nanjo, regarding public teleconference participation. Mr. Nanjo?
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Good morning, and thank you for joining today's Board of Equalization meeting via teleconference. Throughout the duration of today's meeting, you will primarily be in a listen-only mode. As you may know from our public agenda notice and our website, we have requested that individuals who wish to make a public comment fill out the public comment submission form found on our additional information webpage in advance of today's meeting, or alternatively, participate in today's meeting by providing your public comment live. After the presentation of an item has concluded, we will begin by identifying any public comment requests that have been received by our board proceeding staff, with the AT&T operator providing directions for you to identify yourself. After all known public commenters have been called, the operator will also provide public comment instructions to the individuals participating via teleconference. Accordingly, if you intend to make a public comment today, we recommend dialing into the meeting on the teleconference line, as the audio broadcast on our website experiences a 1 to 3 minute delay. When giving a public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We ask that everyone who is not intending to make a public comment, please mute their line or minimize background noise. If there are technical difficulties when we are in the public comment portion of our meeting, we will do our best to read any submitted comments into the record at the appropriate times. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Back to you, Ms. Davis.
Mr. Chairman, would you like for me to read the first item of the day?
Yes, please.
Our first item is item BB, COVID-19, County Boards of Equalization, Assessment Appeals Board, Collaborative Work Group, Consensus Guidance, Letters to the Assessor. This panel will be moderated by Chairman Vasquez and Member Cohen. Are you ready to present, Chairman?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Members, just another friendly reminder, this was done with the assistance of my staff and Member Cohen and her staff. And I think, as I mentioned yesterday, Ms. Cohen is home enjoying her newborn. So she's not with us today, but she's here with us in spirit. With that, members, at this time, we will discuss and approve the list or summary of consensus items from the September 23rd AAB work group meeting, which you each received in a memo last week. We will address the non-consensus items at the meeting in November, because our time is limited today. Our goal today is briefly to discuss each consensus statement and approve them as is or make non-substantial changes to the board, which the board determines will increase the clarity or consensus, and have the ED place each approved consensus statement in a letter to the assessors on this subject. Due to our limited time of 90 minutes, we will only have 8 minutes for each consensus item. Starting, and the process will be: number one, we'll introduce each consensus statement and then I'll have my attorney read into the record what we came up with the work group in terms of a consensus. Second, I will provide 3 minutes for the work group members to comment or suggest a non-substantial change that does not break the consensus. Third, I will ask the board members to discuss, suggest, or change, or ask questions. And then fourth, we will call for a motion from the board and see if there is a consensus or unanimous from the board moving forward. If the members can't agree on the wording, I will ask Ms. Davis to move that sub-issue to the end of the meeting. However, I really don't want to go in that direction. I'm hoping we can just stay within the parameters that we've already set, because there's been a lot of discussion, especially with the participants and the stakeholders at our meeting back in September. I will then call for a vote on the motion and then move forward to make sure that each consensus statement is approved by the board and placed on an LTA by the executive director. With that, let me start with the first issue, which is A1. Members, the first sub-issue.
Vasquez.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Vasquez.
Member Gaines, go ahead.
Member Gaines. Yeah, I just have a question of procedure.
Sure.
Here we are as a board. We're looking at our governance policy and making potential changes to it. And I'm just wondering if we're proceeding in the right fashion without Member Cohen here. I can't hear you. I think your mic is off, Chair.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Now, are you referring in terms of when we get to the governance or just this item that we're discussing now?
I'm talking about the governance.
Oh, well, in terms of the governance, we're not going to vote or finalize anything until our next meeting, or hopefully in November. And I'm hoping Ms. Cohen could at least join us for that.
Okay, so this is just a discussion on the governance policy at this stage?
Yes. Matter of fact, when we get to that in the agenda, I will present my recommendation and then open it up to you and other members to see if others have other suggestions or ideas. And then we will agendize that for the November meeting.
Okay.
There won't be a vote on it.
Thank you. All right.
Not a problem. With that, members, we're going on to issue A1. Members, our first issue under issue A, clarification on the rights of hearing participants. In this right to the type of hearing, with physical or in-person or remote, for both procedural and evidentiary matters. My attorney, Chris Cassad, will read the consensus statement into the record. Is Ms. Cassad available?
AT&T, can you check to see if Chris Cassad is logged into the call?
One moment, please.
Thank you.
I do not have anyone that's dialed in as a co-host. If you are on the line, please press 1, then 0 at this time. All right, I am opening the line. We've had one queue up here. One moment. Chris Cassad, please say something.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Chris Kazad. Thank you. Our consensus statement on sub-issue A1 reads, County Boards of Equalization and Assessment Appeals Boards have the administrative authority and option to provide either in-person hearings or remote hearings or both. Participants may reject a remote hearing and receive a continuance until an in-person hearing is available, or may reject an in-person hearing and receive a continuance. To ensure that appellants may exercise this right, BOE should take the necessary action to clarify that public health impacts resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic constitute reasonable cause under Property Tax Rule 323 for an AAB to grant such continuances. Where necessary, continuances beyond the 2-year statute of limitations should require a waiver by the appellant.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the work group that possibly might be on the line?
Good morning, Chair. This is Brianne Rabowski speaking on behalf of CADA. How are you doing this morning?
Great, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having us. We again really want to applaud the board's extensive efforts in bringing the working group together and weighing in on this incredibly important issue. My understanding is that the board has committed to continue to consider clarification items as well as outstanding items and follow-on meetings to occur in November and December. And again, we think it's important that the board continue to consider outstanding items. I did want to clarify that CADA sent 2 additional letters to you in response to your memo dated October 9th summarizing the consensus items. And the clarification I wanted to state is the intent of the letters was simply to provide additional clarification and topics to be considered at a future date. Our recommendation for all items, and I understand we are going one by one, is that the October memo as drafted is adopted and converted into an LTA to provide guidance to counties. But what I will do is under each issue, so under issue A1 to begin with, what I'd like to do is reiterate the points that we think warrant future discussion. Again, not something to be layered into the current consensus items. So quickly related to issue A1, we would like future clarification related to applicants' abilities to reject remote hearings, not simply because of concerns related to COVID, but within their sole discretion if they think a remote hearing is not suited to the needs for their hearing and due process rights. Secondly, we would like to broaden the ability to postpone and make sure that it relates to all pandemic-related concerns, not just those specific to health concerns. So, for example, the inability to travel would be a concern related to the pandemic that doesn't relate directly to health. And finally, further clarification that waivers are needed only to the extent that a request for postponement comes within 120 days of the expiration of the 2-year statute of limitations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members from the work group? Hearing and seeing none, I will turn now to the members. Members, are there any questions or comments on what was read in terms of the consensus on this item? You know, there's several other items which was also mentioned by Kata that we'll take up at a later date. But at least for this piece or this part of it, I'm hoping that we can move forward with this, unless there's some comments or questions by the members.
Chair Vasquez, Member
Yep.
Gaines, if I could just briefly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just would want to accentuate the due process issue. Throughout this entire discussion, we want to make sure that people are having due process and having their cases heard. And obviously this is complicated as a result of technology that is supposed to simplify our lives. But when it comes to due process, it actually complicates it. So if things aren't working right, documents can't be read, or there's a lack of security in documents being presented, lack of privacy. These are all concerns that I have. So I want to make sure that we are treating the party fairly as they come forward on an appeal, and that due process is honored throughout it. And my recollection at our hearing last month was that there was one individual that said that we're going to provide the least amount of due process when it comes to remote virtual hearings. And I just think that that is the wrong approach, and that this board ought to be standing up for our constituents as they bring cases forward, and they're given that the fairness that each of them deserve. Thank you.
I agree, and we'll definitely note that. Any other members?
Vice Chair, I have no further comments.
Thank you. Ms. Stowers?
Thank you. No comment at this time.
Thank you. I understand that we may have somebody else on the call. I believe it's Marcy Bergman from the working group. Is she available?
One moment, I'll open her line. Okay, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I think generally subsection A1 reflects the consensus. I do have a minor tweak to the last sentence so that it's consistent with the rule and the consensus and isn't confusing. And that would be either to just delete the phrase beyond the 2-year statute of limitations so that it reads, where necessary, continuances should require a waiver by the appellant, or alternatively, for it to be phrased, where necessary, continuances should require a waiver beyond the 2-year statute of limitations by the appellant. And I think that would make it entirely consistent with the consensus and the rule, and less confusing for those who really understand how the rules work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? And, you know, for those, especially the working group members that might be on the public line, if they're out there, well, let me ask AT&T to put a call out and see if there's other members, especially from the working group, that might be on the line.
And if you do wish to make a comment at this time, please press 1, then 0. 1, 0. One moment. We do have a few that are queuing up. We just got to give them their line numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, our first public comment will come from the line 61. Please go ahead, line 61.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. This is Ernest Dronenberg, Assessor, San Diego County. I was part of the working group, and I believe that the statements that have come so far were consistent with what I believe happened in the working group, and I concur with what your current motion is.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Chairman Vasquez, this is Brian Rabowski again from CADA. I didn't quite track Ms. Berkman's suggested language changes to the waiver portion in the last section. If those are to be entertained, I'd like to make sure that I have an understanding of how the language would be altered.
Yes, what I was going to do is after we hear from anybody else in the public, I was going to ask staff to read it back on the record. It's my understanding she was just looking at the last line, but we will restate it and see if there's consensus on that.
Understood. Appreciate that.
No, thank you. Anybody else on the public line that was from the working group?
We do. One moment here. The next comes from the line 40. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. John McKibben from the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. I apparently logged in the wrong manner. Was unable to speak when I should have. With regard to issue 1A, maybe I can clarify what Ms. Berkman was talking about. It's something that our association was going to be asking you for, to delete that phrase in the last sentence of the guideline, which reads beyond the 2-year statute of limitations. It appears to conflict a little bit with Rule 23, or at least creates confusion, because the way the rule reads is that a waiver would be required if the postponement was requested within 120 days of the expiration of the 2-year limitation provided in Section 1604. So we think that phrase in the sentence shouldn't be there, or should be stated differently to make sure that it's consistent with Property Tax Rule 323. We don't want to get in a confused situation if somebody requests a waiver within the 120-day period prior to the expiration of the limitation and refuses to sign a waiver. Clerks are always concerned that we might get inadvertently maneuvered into a default situation on the 2-year statute. So we could either delete that phrase, or alternatively say where necessary, continuance is requested within 120 days of the expiration of the 2-year statute of limitation requires the written agreement to extend and toll indefinitely the 2-year period in accordance with Rule 323. That's all the comment that I had on this one.
Thank you. Anybody else from the working group?
We do have 2 more in queue. The next one comes from the line 17. Please go ahead, line 17.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and members, this is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles County. I also had some difficulties in trying to get access to your meeting beyond listening, but to the point, I concur with what Mr. McKibben of the CACEO has said, and I would also join the request as well of Ms. Berkman that the phrase beyond the 2-year statute of limitations in A1 be deleted, because there's no need for it, and Rule 323, as already written, will cover the situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last in queue comes from the line 24. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This is Marvis Mazik with the San Diego County, and I just wanted to concur that we are in agreement with the amendments to the item that have been brought forward by Ms. Berkman, Mr. Parker, and Mr. McKibben.
Thank you.
And we
Chairman
have no
Vasquez.
further in queue.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Brianne. This is Brian Rabowski from CADA.
Yes.
I think we are in favor, as we've stated in our letter, in bringing this last sentence to be consistent and mirror Property Tax Rule 323. However, I am concerned that the suggested revisions don't closely enough mirror Rule 323. One of the things that stood out to me was Mr. McKibben's suggestion that an indefinite waiver be required. It is not my understanding that an indefinite waiver is required under Rule 323. I think there are counties that prefer and at times enforce indefinite waivers. However, I don't think that's necessarily consistent, and I don't think that that's something that the board should be requiring of taxpayers in order to gain a postponement when they disagree with remote hearings. So my suggestion on this item, given the back and forth of it and given the implications of Property Tax Rule 323, is that perhaps we move this to an item to be considered as a follow-on item in November and December hearings, because I think it's important for legal purposes that we are consistent with the existing Rule 323.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm hearing from others that maybe just eliminating that last sentence beyond the 2-year statute of limitations should require a waiver by the appellant. Is that sufficient, or you think it still needs more clarity?
Let me take a look at the rule. I think I'll have to take a quick look at that. I apologize.
Not a problem. Was there anybody else from the working group?
We do have 2 more that have queued up. We do have a follow-up from Marcy Berkman. Please go ahead. Your line is open. Ms. Berkman,
Hi, this is
possibly.
Marcy Berkman.
Go ahead.
First, a quick question. I think the county members of the working group are on the public line. It sounds to me like perhaps Kata's on a co-host line. And if that's indeed the case, I was wondering if there's a co-host line that can be sent out to us other members of the working group to make this run more smoothly. With respect to the language that's in discussion, I think that where the language in the letter came from is back in September's meeting. I had noted that Rule 323 already adequately covers the situation and should be mirrored in the remote hearing context. And I additionally pointed out that in some instances, there might be, for example, a large complex case that wants to wait until the pandemic is over and they can have a live hearing and not have to go through doing the first request for a matter of right under Rule 323 and then getting reset and having to do the second postponement for good cause being the pandemic, but just wants to be kicked over until the pandemic's over and they can be live. And in that case, they might want to sign a waiver right off the bat. And so I think that the language in the consensus letter was attempting to capture that. And that was why I suggested that if you just made the change that I suggested, that would more appropriately capture that without sounding like it's trying to do something different than Rule 323. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the co-host members, my apologies. I understand that AT&T had an outage, so that's why I think you folks were cut out on the co-host. But hopefully you'll get reconnected to the co-host to hopefully make it a little bit smoother as we continue discussing items.
We haven't been provided the co-host number.
They should be emailing it to you shortly.
And this is Ryan with AT&T. Ms. Berkman, you're going to have an open line for the rest of the call, so you do not need to press 10 anymore. Please use your mute button.
Thank you.
We do have 1 more in queue. It's line 40. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John McKibben again, and perhaps I should be offline with AT&T because I was a member of the work group as well and should be given the host access.
I will promote you to that status. Your line will be open for the rest of the call. Please use your mute button.
Thank you very much.
Chairman Vasquez, this is Brianna Rabowski from CADA. I have had an opportunity to pull up the language, and I apologize. I didn't have the correct document in front of me to be able to fully appreciate the changes that were being suggested. But with that now in front of me, the concern I have is that the October 9th memo, in referencing beyond the 2-year statute, is attempting to acknowledge the fact that waivers are not required. They're only required under the rule to the extent that the request comes within 120 days of the expiration of the 2-year statute. And so my concern is if we simply delete the reference to beyond the 2-year statute of limitations, we've now created an affirmative duty that allows counties to require waivers that are not otherwise required under the Property Tax Rule 323. So I think we either need to clarify that when we're talking about when a waiver is necessary, that it is necessary in the context of it coming within 120 days of the expiration of the waiver, or we need to move this to a discussion at a future date, because my concern is the suggestions that have been made will expand beyond the property tax rule and create a new requirement that doesn't currently exist.
This is Marcy Brookman. Speaking in a general context about Rule 323, just a correction and clarification to Brianne's characterization of the rule. Under 323, a first request, if timely made at least 21 days before the hearing, is a postponement, is a matter of right. The second good cause request in writing automatically extends and tolls the 2-year statute. As a practical matter, many or most counties, when they grant that second request for good cause, rather than simply relying on that automatic extending and tolling, additionally have the applicant sign a waiver, simply because it's easier to have that in writing than risk later arguing on what date the automatic extending and tolling started from. But as a legal matter, any second postponement granted for good cause automatically extends and tolls the 2-year statute. And as we've discussed in previous meetings, with regard to the discussion from CADA about indefiniteness, the rules also allow that at such time as an applicant wants to revoke their waiver, they can do so on 120 days written notice of revocation. And most counties apply that even where the extending and tolling is automatic.
Thank you. You know, I'm going to have the executive director and our legal counsel weigh in and clarify, especially this legal issue as we're referring to this last line. Do we have Mr. Nanjo and maybe Brenda Fleming on the line?
Chairman Vasquez?
Oh, Ms. Stowers, yes, go ahead.
Before Ms. Fleming, Mr. Nanjo speak, I'm just kind of trying to get clarification if all of the working group members have access now where they could speak freely. Because my understanding, there was about 8 members on the group, and it seems like only 3 have been provided open access through AT&T.
I think they're all available now, but let me ask, is there anybody out there that doesn't have, especially from the working group, that's not part of the co-host? You can either request an open line on the public line through AT&T.
And as a reminder, if you do want me to open your line for the call, please press 1 then 0 at this time. We do have 3 that have queued up. I'm going to open the line of 61. Please go ahead and state your name. Line 61, are you there?
Yeah, this is Ernie Dronenberg.
Okay. I'll open your line for the rest of the call.
Thank
you. Please use your own mute button.
I will.
Anybody else?
Now we do have We do have a Regina Evans. I'm opening your line for the rest of the call. Please use your own mute button. And we have one more. Just one moment, please. All right, and I am opening line 34. Please state your name.
This is Jennifer Tran with LA County.
Okay, I am promoting you to a co-host. Your line will be open for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. With that, I'm
That's
sorry.
the only ones we had queue up. We have no further. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry about that difficult. I know this technology is a whole new world here, but thank you for your patience. Is Ms. Fleming or Mr. Nanjo, our legal counsel, available?
Good morning, sir. I'm inviting Mr. Nanjo and Dave Young, Deputy Director for Property Tax. If both gentlemen, if you would join this call and participate in this aspect of the discussion. Hi, this is Henry Nanjo. I had a technical difficulty. I had a momentary power failure at 180 and my phone reset, so I missed part of the conversation, but I have Richard Moon of my office who was also listening in, who's ready to participate. Mr. Moon, are you available?
I am. This is Richard Moon with the legal department. I guess before saying anything about the technical aspects of Rule 323, if the purpose here is to review the areas of concurrence where all the parties had agreed, it sounds like at least with respect to this particular language, there is not agreement. And so I would say that's the first thing to consider, and it may be prudent to exclude that sentence as an agreed on item. As far as the technical aspects of what was discussed, I think we'd have to take a look at it and look at that sentence a little bit more closely to see if it actually gives a quote unquote or limits a right, as Ms. Rabowski had said. I'm not sure that it does. I think we'd need to really look at that language.
Thank you.
And one final point on that of just clarification, Brian Rabowski on behalf of CADA as well. Looking at the specific language of the rule, which I concur with Mr. Moon is what should be done, and this language should be removed from the consensus items. The language of the rule states that a stipulation between the applicant and the assessor constitutes good cause for purposes of subsequent postponement. And it is that stipulation, that limited instance, in which the 2-year statute is extended and told indefinitely. So I think there are a lot of technicalities and nuances in this single sentence that need to be digested and ensured that it's consistent with the rule and not expanding the rules I've stated as a concern.
And this is Marcy Berkman. Brianne, if you go back and you look at the history of Rule 323, that good cause for a second postponement language and the automatic extending and tolling applies to any second postponement request for good cause that's granted. Back when they were doing Rule 323, there was discussions among the State Board of Equalization about what constitutes good cause, and after much discussion, it was decided that an agreement by both parties to postpone was definitely good cause, and any other good cause would be left up to the board rather than set forth in stone in the statute. And so that automatic extending and tolling is for any time that there's a second postponement for good cause granted, but the only thing that is mandated to be good cause is an agreement between the parties, and any other good cause is left up to the boards to decide.
Chair Vasquez, this is Member Gaines.
Yes, go ahead, Member Gaines.
I'm just wondering if we can move on. I mean, this has taken forever. These are supposed to be consensus items. So if we don't have a consensus, why don't we let the parties gather and figure it out and we can move on to the next consensus item.
Well noted. Why don't we do this? It sounds like there's a consensus up to that last line. What if we just delete that last line for now? Are the members okay with that?
I second that, to just delete that last sentence and move on.
That's a good idea, Vice Chair Schaefer.
All right.
I don't know if we don't have clarity though, do we? So we're going to edit something we don't have clarity on from the parties that have weighed in.
But what I'm hearing even from the parties, it sounds like there's obviously no consensus on that last line. So I'm suggesting, why don't we just eliminate it for now, and we could take it up, later on when we get to the other issues that we don't have consensus on in November.
Okay, is that
Mr. Chair,
acceptable to the parties that have?
This is Mark Freya on behalf of CADA, and I just wanted to suggest that as Brianne Rabowski proffered earlier, that striking the sentence in essence creates a presumption or a bias, and therefore this is you're asking, is this a reflection of the consensus? Whether you leave it as is or you strike that sentence, there is no consensus. Either you have some parties who object to this paragraph as is, or you have some parties objecting to it if you strike that sentence. To the extent that you are trying to arrive at adopting a consensus, at this time there is no consensus in either version of that provision A1, and therefore we recommend not that this be struck and not considered, but rather that it be moved to be addressed in the November meeting.
This is Marcy Berkman. I disagree with there not being a consensus. Everyone in the September meeting was in consensus that we should follow Rule 323. And where the very small hiccup came in is I was the one who made the suggestion back in September that we do language similar to what we've been discussing, just to make life easier for good clients like CADA, who might want to put over, the hearing until the remote hearing thing is over and be sure they have a live hearing and save them the effort of having to go through a second set of hearing notices. I would suggest we have Henry Nanjo and Mr. Moon, legal counsel, just take a look at the language, make sure whatever they're drafting for the LTA is consistent with Rule 323, because that's what the consensus was. And I think there's various ways to achieve that. One would be the minor tweak that I suggested that would just make this read consistent with Rule 323. Another way would be to eliminate the sentence. My problem with this is it just made it sound like something different was being done with the 2-year statute of limitations, and I thought a minor tweak in the language would solve it. But everyone seems to be on consensus. What we want to do is mirror Rule 323 here. And I think if State Board Counsel can just draft the LTA in a way that's consistent with Rule 323, and I don't see any non-consensus here or any reason to delay getting this letter out, which will be so useful to applicants and AABs around the state.
This is Thomas Parker, and I concur with what Ms. Berkman has said. I agree that there was an absolute, as I heard everyone speak, everyone agreed that 323 should be mirrored. And so I concur with the idea of letting Mr. Moon, Mr. Nanjo come up with language that says that, exactly that.
This is John McKibben, Mr. Chair. I concur as well.
Mr. Chair Vasquez, this is Don Gakel, CA President, and I concur with the statement of Ms. Berkman and the other respondents.
Thank you.
Chair.
Vice Chair Schaefer, go ahead.
Yeah, I would move to a solution that incorporates what we're being asked to do.
Could I ask a question to the maker of the motion? And that would be,
go ahead.
Could we have some input and cooperation by members of the working committee on drafting that language with our legal counsel.
Chair Vasquez, this is Regina with
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Bowen's office.
Yes.
I'm not sure if there's a motion on the floor, but Mr. Gaines, I really appreciate your comment, but as a member of the work group, I just think that's a practice we may not want to consider. I think what we're hearing collectively from the work group is that they will defer to our legal counsel at the Board of Equalization to consider this discussion and drafting the LTA. And I think that's a clear win-win. Just want to make sure Kata's on board.
Chairman, this is Henry Nanjo. Just to clarify, there is currently a motion on the floor. It was moved by Chairman Vasquez, Deputy Controller Stowers seconded, on adopting the language with the deletion of the sentence. So,
I'm
just
sorry,
to clarify.
I'm sorry.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. My motion then was out of place if there was a motion and a second pending, so I withdraw my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Schaefer.
Thank you. Members.
Chairman.
Yes, who's this?
Chairman Vasquez, Brianna Rabowski from CATA. I just wanted to respond to Ms. Evans' invitation to weigh in on this issue. I do think upon reflecting about the entirety of the first paragraph, simply striking the last sentence is a good solution so that we can reach consensus now. CATA is on board with adopting the consensus, deleting the last sentence. I agree with Member Gaines that it is important that we have an opportunity to weigh in on the language and the legal analysis that goes into the language that will be included in the LTA. As this lengthy discussion demonstrates, there are differences of opinion how you mirror Rule 323, and I think it's incredibly important from a legal standpoint that we do so very accurately and in a way that reflects a consensus from the working group. So given the importance of this particular issue, I do think it would be good for the working group to be able to weigh in on the language as revised once the legal staff has had an opportunity to compare it to Rule 323.
Thank you.
Deanna?
Members,
yeah.
Now, since there's a motion and it's been second and there we've had some discussion, let me just hear from the members at this point, whether they are comfortable moving forward or if they have any questions, and if not, I'll call for the vote and see if there's a majority on board with this. Just asking the members at this point.
Chairman Vasquez, Yvette Stowers
Yes,
here.
Stowers, go ahead.
I am comfortable with the motion as stated to delete the last sentence. I understand the discussion that we just had, but I stand by how the motion was stated earlier.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other member?
I'm fine too. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Member Gaines.
This Vice Chair, I'm on board with the rest of you.
Thank you. Let me just, for the record, have Ms. Davis go ahead and call the roll on this motion then.
Chairman Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. Thank you, folks, and thank you for the working group. I know we went a little long on this one, so we'll try to pick it up. With that, let me have Ms.
Chairman Vasquez?
Oh, yes.
Chairman Vasquez?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, my apologies. Henry Nanjo, Chief Counsel. I want to make sure that legal has a clear understanding of what we need to do. So as I understand the board's direction and the conclusion of that motion, the consensus language is the language that is stated in the memo with the exception of that last sentence, and that will ultimately be given to legal to work into a LTA with, consistent with Rule 323. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. With that, Ms. Davis, if you would move on to the next item.
Just one moment, Chairman.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next item of the day is CC, Workforce Planning Workgroup Stakeholder Meeting, a presentation of the Workforce Planning Workgroup's finding and recommendations on discussion and possible action. Chair Vasquez.
You called, this is issue A2, right?
My apologies, sir. Let me go back and read the next paragraph. Just one moment, sir.
He's saying it's A2 and she's saying it's CC. Are we on the same calendar?
Vice
Just for a
Chairman.
moment.
This is Brenda Fleming. This is
Chairman.
Brenda Fleming, members. We're going to continue with the first, the AAB item. We've just completed item A1. We are now proceeding with item 2, short-term right for emergencies or long-term options.
Yes.
I don't see that here.
Thank you, Madam ED.
Gary, where am I?
I don't. Let's see.
I had page 6 and 7 there.
This is Member Gaines. It looks like they're bullets on our, at least in what I'm reading. So we have issue A, and that's the second bullet. Is that correct? Am I?
Yes, it should be issue A2 you should be looking at right now.
There's not a digit
That
next
is
to it,
correct,
but it's
sir.
the second bullet.
Oh, I guess on yours might be a second bullet. Let me have Ms. Davis read it into the record and see if you all can find it on your agenda.
Are you muted, Mike?
Just one moment, sir. Madam ED, Madam Executive Director,
Yes, ma'am.
if you can read that on my behalf, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you. Members and work group. We're looking at 2, short-term right for emergencies or long-term option. This material is attached to the PAN. Although no consensus was reached on this issue, the board's guidance herein focuses on the short-term use of remote hearings with additional guidance to be provided in the future. The BOE legal department declared that county boards and assessment appeal boards have broad authority to implement and carry out remote hearings, and there is no statute or rule prohibiting it. AB 107, effective 9/29/20, recently memorialized and clarified this conclusion. There's a link to the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I was going to have my Chris Casad, my legal, read it, but you've read it, so that's fine. So it's into the record now. Members, I think the work group basically agreed that the initial guidance should, 1, focus on the short-term use of remote hearings, and 2, should clarify that the AABs have authority to carry out remote hearings. So these 2 statements should be in this first LTA if the members agree. What are your thoughts? Member Gaines, were you able to find that on your agenda?
Yes, I did. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
There's just there were no numbers on what I'm reading from, but yeah, I'm looking at it and it looks fine to me.
Okay. Vice Chair Schaefer?
Yes, Chair. What is your question?
What was just read, there was no consensus on the overall, but we did have one statement that was just read into the record by Mrs. Fleming, and just wanted to make sure that people were, or at least the members were comfortable with including those 2 statements into this first LTA that they're going to produce.
My agenda is page 6 and 7 of yesterday's adjourned meeting.
Well, that's, you should be on today's.
I am, and work group's findings and recommendations started
Yes.
this all, and I'm on that, but that's only 2 lines long.
Oh, well, you know what? Let me give you a minute to look for that. While you're doing that, let me ask if there's any comments from the working group on this before we move on.
Maybe if I could I help clarify this, Member Gaines?
Sure, go ahead, Member Gaines.
Mike, in your binder, I'm showing it under BB1, and it says AAB remote hearings, consensus guidance, and then we have all the information about what we're discussing here in detail.
Member Gaines, my chief deputy is currently printing that out for me. So
oh, good. Okay. All right. Great.
Okay. While we're waiting for that to happen, let me ask from the working group if there's any comments on this recommendation.
Chairman Vasquez,
Mr. Chair.
Rand Browski on behalf of CATA, we are in agreement with including this language. We also think it's particularly important given that it has a key reference to AB 107, which we do agree allows and provides the board authority to implement and carry out guidance related to remote hearings. And we think that's an important thing to be highlighted. We do think on a go-forward basis that it would be a good idea to reconvene the working group to consider how remote hearings have evolved over time. However, that last statement is something that should be considered on a go-forward basis and not something to be included in the current consensus items.
Thank you. Anybody else from the work?
Mr. Chair, this is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles County. Los Angeles is in agreement with A2 as written.
Thank you. Anybody else?
John McKibben on behalf of the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. We have the same view as Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is Don Gakel, California Assessors Association President, and we agree that this should be adopted as written.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Digital version of the mic.
Hearing nobody else, let me ask Ms. Davis if we can get the AT&T to see if there's anybody on the line that wishes to comment on this.
Yes, sir. AT&T, can you check to see if there's anyone who'd like to make a public comment on this item?
Certainly. Once again, if you do wish to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. One, 0. And we do not have anyone in queue.
Thank you. So now this is these two recommendations or the two statements that I suggested should be included in the first LTA are before the members. Mr. Gaines, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair Schaefer, were you able to locate that in your binder?
Yes, I am, and I am comfortable with it.
Okay. Ms. Stowers?
Yes, and yes.
Okay, let's, why don't we officially take a roll call vote on this? Ms. Davis?
Chairman Vasquez?
Aye.
Chairman
Vice
Vasquez,
Chair
point of-
Schaefer?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Stowers.
Point of clarification, although we all just expressed our comfort, I don't recall hearing a motion So out of abundance of whatever word I'm looking for, I move that we accept the language as drafted.
It's been moved by Ms. Stowers,
Second.
and it's
I'll
been
second.
seconded by Mr. Gaines. Now, let's take a vote.
Chairman Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous. With that, Ms. Davis, if you call the next item.
The next item is item 3, equal access in remote hearings, ensuring all parties and AAB members can view and hear each other during hearings.
Members, the third sub-issue under issue A is equal access in remote hearings and ensuring all parties and AAB members can view, hear each other during hearings. I'm going to have Ms. Kassad read into the record the consensus statement.
Thank you, sir. Chris Kazad. The consensus statement on sub-issue A3 extends only to the first part. It reads, consistent with Property Tax Rule 302A, equal access must be provided to all participants in remote hearings. Thank you. So this does not cover the second part, AAB members can hear and view each other during hearings. Only the first part. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick note, we did not include that all parties should be able to view and hear each other simultaneously during remote hearings. The work group can address that next month. So members, I asked if you approve this simple equal access statement and wish to include it in the LTA. I think it's legally accurate and it is a right to guarantee all participants. Let me ask, I'm sorry, do we have was that a question for one of the members?
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. I was just going to so move.
Okay, before we move it though, let me just ask quickly of the working group for any of their comments first.
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles County. We do not have a problem with that one sentence as written, and understanding that it is not explicitly stating whether or not equal access includes viewing and hearing.
Thank you. Any other member from the working group?
This is Brian Rabowski on behalf of CATO. We also agree with the adoption of the language as stated, also with the same understanding that it doesn't address the issue of being able to ensure the parties can see and view equally. We have provided our views extensively on that issue and think it's something that needs to be taken up by the board at follow-on meetings, and we appreciate Mr. Vasquez's commitment to do so.
Thank you. Any other member from the working group? Hearing no others, let me ask the members.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. I would renew my motion for adoption of A3, and we're dealing with just the first 5 words.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any comments, questions? Hearing and seeing none, I will ask Ms. Davis to call the roll.
Chairman Vasquez, this is Henry Nanja. Just to clarify, I thought I heard Vice Chair Schaefer talk about 5 words. That phrase seems to be longer than 5 words. So am I missing something, or can we get a clarification on that?
Yes, Vice Chair Schaefer, I'm assuming you're referring to what was read into the record, which
equal access in remote hearings. Those are 5 words. I was ignoring the second part of it, which is ensuring all parties and members can view and hear each other doing hearings. I thought that was what we were striking. Or ignoring, rather.
I think we're taking it as a whole, so you.
Yeah, we're taking it as, it's my understanding we're taking it as whole, which it basically reads, consistent with property tax rule 302A, equal access must be provided to all participants in remote hearings.
I see. I was just taking the shortcut at the top of page 2, so I'll withdraw my restriction to 5 words.
Thank you. So, Mr. Nanjo, are we clear?
Member Gaines seconds that.
Yeah,
revision.
Just to clarify, Vice Chair Schaefer and Member Gaines is seconding a motion to adopt the words, quote, consistent with property tax rule 302, paren A, close paren, equal access must be provided to all participants in remote hearings. End quote.
That's fine.
Is that correct, Vice Chair Schaefer and Member Gaines?
Vice Chair agrees.
That is correct.
Thank you. I think we've been clarified.
Thank you. Now, with that clarification, if we have Ms. Davis call the roll.
Chairman Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, members, we will move on to the next item. Ms. Davis.
The next item is the 4th sub-issue under A. It is in-person hearing safety standards, constituencies, other options if a remote hearing is not possible or refused.
Members, the 4th sub-issue under issue A is in-person hearing safety standards, continuances, other options if a remote hearing is not possible or refused. I will have Chris Cassad read into the record what the consensus statement is.
This is Chris Cassad. The consensus statement on sub-issue A4 reads, all state and local public health and safety standards should apply to both in-person and remote hearings.
Thank you. Any comments from the working group?
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles County. We agree with that consensus statement.
Thank you.
John McKibben on behalf of the CA CEO, the clerks agree as well.
Thank you.
Marcy Berkman, Santa Clara County, I agree as well.
Brianne Rabowski on behalf of CADA, we are also in agreement.
Thank you.
Don Gakel on behalf of CAA, we agree.
County, we are in agreement.
Thank you. Hearing no others, members, are we all in agreement with this? This is your opportunity to weigh in.
Vice Chair, I so move.
It's been moved by Vice Chair, and I will go ahead and second that. And the statement is, once again, all state and local public health safety standards should apply to both in-person and remote hearings. Any other comments or questions from the members?
I'm in agreement with that.
Great. Ms. Davis, if you would please call the roll.
Chairman Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, Ms. Davis, if you would move on to the next item.
The next item is issue C, technology options. The first issue under issue C is visual or auditory interruptions, freezing or drop links during hearings, remedies to ensure all parties have access, and alternative options.
Members, on this issue C1, the first sub-issue under issue C, technology options, is visual or auditory interruptions, freezing or dropped links during hearings, remedies to ensure all parties have access, alternative options. I will have Chris Casad, please, will read into the record what the statement was where there was consensus.
Thank you, sir. Chris Kazad. The consensus statement on sub-issue C1 reads, county boards and AAB clerks should monitor and inform participants of any interruptions. The AAB chair should call a recess until the problem is resolved. If it cannot be resolved, the parties may stipulate to continuing the hearing or agree to continue the hearing to the next available date. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the working group?
Mr. Chairman, John McKibben on behalf of the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. I did have a question about the distinction that apparently is being made there, where the parties may stipulate to continuing the hearing or agree to continuing the hearing to the next available date. I'm not quite sure what's intended there, but otherwise we don't have a quarrel with it unless there's some meaning that we're missing in the distinction there.
Ms. Casad, are you still on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
What was your understanding of this?
This is Chris Kazad. Our understanding of this is that the parties, the participants wanted to make sure that if there was any interruption, that all participants had the opportunity to continue the hearing at another time, either at another time or later in the day, whatever options were available. And the AAB chair, of course, would call a recess in order to allow that to happen. It was sort of a general procedure setup that is consistent with, I believe, the current AAB practices. That is my understanding. Perhaps some of the AAB work group members may be able to address more detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes.
Regina Evans. The discussion centered around continuing that day at that time. So for instance, if we are all on visual capabilities as it relates to the hearing and someone loses the capacity to do so, the parties could take a recess, have a discussion, and basically state, let's just continue, even if that person is audio for the rest of the process. So Mr. McGibbon is making a good point. We were distinguishing between continuing that day or continuing at a later time.
Thank you. Any other comments from the other working group members?
This is Brianne Rabowski on behalf of Cato. We are in agreement with the language as drafted, but would also be amenable to further clarification of the next available date. We agree with Regina Evans' characterization of what it should reflect.
Thank you.
Member Vasquez?
Yes,
Chair
member.
Vasquez, sorry. Yeah, this is Member Gaines. I just wanted to reiterate the comments made by Regina Evans. And so I guess we're all clear that explanation would be included in this particular item.
That's my understanding.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
I counted the words on the last paragraph here after if it cannot be resolved, and as written, it's 24 words. I think the first 14 words really say it all. If it cannot be resolved, the parties may stipulate to continue the hearing. That could mean continuing the hearing to later today or to the next available date. I mean, I don't think we have to say it twice. If we could cut 80% of our words out of anything, I think we should do that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the members?
I think this is Member Gaines, Member Schaefer, I think you bring up a good point, but I guess I'd want clarity from the working committee before I move forward on any editing.
I'll accede to members' request on that. I'm being a little too cost efficient, and we do have the space, the room, and the time, and so I'll vote in favor of clarification.
This is Don Gakel, CAA president. I looking at this, I'm thinking it might be clarified to say that the parties may stipulate to proceed with the hearing or agree to continue the hearing to the next available date.
Chair Vasquez, this is Member Gaines.
Member Gaines, go ahead.
Yeah, I like what's being suggested by Assessor Gakel. I don't know how the other members feel or the workshop members.
Chair Schaefer, we're deleting quote, if it cannot be resolved, end of quote, right?
That's what it sounds like to me.
As amended, I would go with the proposal.
Is there any comments from any of the working members on this?
This is Don Gakel.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Don Gakel. It was not my intent to eliminate if it cannot be resolved.
Okay.
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles County. As a practical matter, the Los Angeles County on October 19th had its first remote hearings, and where we had glitches, recesses were called until the problem was resolved, and then the hearing was resumed. We haven't yet had situations where we've had to continue to a whole new day, but we're very, very early in our remote hearing experience, and I'm sure that will occur. So this language, whether it's in this exact form or whether it gets edited in some fashion, is okay with Los Angeles County. Perhaps we could trust the legal office to take account of everything that is said on this item and craft language which captures what everyone does agree on. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say.
On behalf of
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I agree with Mr. Parker. I think on this particular point, there is a consensus. Perhaps there's some language that could use some further clarification to ensure that there's sufficient flexibility. But so long as it states something along the lines of if it cannot be resolved, the parties may stipulate to either pursue the hearing or continue the hearing, something simple like that, I think the working group would be in agreement, and CADA is as well.
Thank you.
John McKibben for the clerks, we agree.
Thank you. With that, members, I would like to move that we accept the language that was read into the record and then leave it to our legal team to make sure that legally it's clear. And if they decide to wordsmith it a little bit, I'm comfortable with that.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any comments from the members?
This is Member Gaines. I agree with that.
Okay. Let me have Ms. Davis, please call the roll then.
Chairman Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. Ms. Davis, you please call the next item.
The second sub-item under item 2, issue technology options, is reliable platforms for remote hearings, i.e. Zoom, WebEx, etc., addressing bandwidth, other solutions to consider.
Thank you. I will have Chris Cassad, read into the record the consensus statement.
Chris Kazad, the consensus statement on sub-issue C2 reads, county boards and assessment appeals boards may select the best platform based on their needs, priorities, security, and ease for the user. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from any of the working group members?
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles. We are in agreement with that language. It reflects the county's general view that there should be a fair and reasonable degree of flexibility given to local AABs and boards of equalizations by the state board to carry out the workload and to deal effectively with the resources available to that county. Thank you.
Thank you.
John McKibben, on behalf of the Clerks Association, we agree with the language as drafted and echo Tom Parker's comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Brianne Rabowski on behalf of Cato. We are also in agreement with the language as drafted. We would suggest that at a future date, the board take up the issue to confirm that the selected platform must protect confidential documents and information, but trust that that can be done at a future date.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments, members, the item is now before us.
I'd like to make a motion. This is Member Gaines.
Yes, go ahead, Member Gaines.
Under issue C, technology options, item 2, would make a motion to approve.
As read into the record, right?
Correct.
I will second that. Any other comments from the members?
This is Deputy Controller Stowers. As the language was read into the record, I accept the information. I just want to make a point of clarification that we are not dictating any type of technology that the AABs and the counties must use. Therefore, we're not providing any type of state mandate.
Agree. With that clarification, I think we're ready for a vote. Ms. Davis?
Chairman Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
That's unanimous of those present. Ms. Davis, we would move on to the next item.
The third item is C3. The third sub-item under technology options is C3, notice requirements to parties, access instructions, coaching, training, videos, and accommodations for special needs.
Thank you. Chris Casad, will please read the consensus statement into the record.
Thank you, Chris Kazad. The consensus statement on sub-issue C3 reads, County Board and AAB clerks must provide notices to all parties informing them of remote hearing access instructions, coaching and/or training videos, staff availability, and accommodations for special needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the working group?
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles. We agree with C3. Thank you.
Thank you.
John McKibben on behalf of the Clerks Association, we agree.
Thank you.
Brianne Rabowski on behalf of Cato, we are also in agreement and would like the board at a future date to consider clarifying that the notice regarding the remote hearing and instructions that are listed under item C3 as drafted should be provided at the same time and subject to the same requirements as hearing notice requirements under the current rules.
Thank you. Hearing no other.
Don Gakel.
Oh, go ahead.
This is Don Gakel on behalf of the CAA. We support the item as drafted. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments, members, this item is now before us.
Vice Chair Schaefer, I would have read coaching/training as coaching/training and not coaching and/or training, but I guess that's just a matter of style.
Other than that, you're comfortable with it?
Yes.
So you want to go ahead and move that?
I would so move.
As read into the record?
As read into the record, yes.
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Gaines. Any comments? Seeing and hearing none from the members, I think we're ready for a roll call. Ms. Davis?
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. Ms. Davis, if you would please read the next item.
Our next item, we're moving into the D item. The first item under D is D1, possible modifications needed to Property Tax Rules 301 through 326 to facilitate remote hearings.
Ms. Davis, I'm looking. I don't see.
My apologies, sir. The next item is D, item D, under the first item under item D, BOE role is 1. Possible modifications needed to Property Tax Rule 301 through 326 to facilitate remote hearings.
Yes, okay. Now, members, we'll move on to issue D, BOE's role, because there are no consensus on issues C4, ensuring parties can simultaneously view all documents, which will be addressed, this will be addressed in November. Issue D1, the first sub-issue under D, BOE's role is possible modifications to property tax rules 301 to 306 to facilitate remote hearings. I will have Ms. Chris Casad please read into the record what there was consensus on.
Chris Kazad, the consensus statement on sub-issue D1 reads as follows. No immediate new property tax rules or rule amendments are necessary in order to facilitate remote hearings. Guidance can be provided to counties in the short term through letters to assessors. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the working group?
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles County. LA agrees with the language.
Thank you.
Brianne Rabowski, CADA is also in agreement.
Thank you.
Don Gakel, CA, is also in agreement.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments from the working group members, this item is now before us.
Vice Chair Schaefer, in future items, we might save a little time by saying, are there any disagreements?
That works.
I would so move to adopt the quoted language for item 1.
As read into the record.
As read into the record. Thank you.
Second.
Been moved by Vice Chair Schaefer and second by Mr. Gaines. Is there any other comments, questions? Hearing and seeing none. Ms. Davis, if you please call the roll.
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. Ms. Davis, if you would please call the next item.
The next item is issue D2, details on guidance needed to ensure uniformity on resolved remote hearing issues via letters to assessors and assessment appeals manual.
I will have Ms. Chris Cassad read into the record what there was consensus on.
This is Chris Kazad. The consensus statement on sub-issue D2 reads as follows. The intent of BOE guidance to counties should be to ensure uniformity in addressing basic hearing issues reflected in the property tax rules and statutes, and should simultaneously allow flexibility for the adoption of local rules on notice requirements and other matters to allow for differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the working group on this?
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles. Los Angeles agrees with the language, and and consistent with our prior statement on another item, it reflects the need for allowing flexibility through local rules that allow that particular county to address their workload and their resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair
John McKibben.
Vice Chair Schaefer, could I ask our chair, could we just ask if there's any disagreement among the working group? I think that would save some time.
You know, Vice Chair Schaefer, I was going to do that. So at this point, I'm just asking if there's any comments from the working group. But I hear where you're going with this. So I'm assuming unless there's an objection or clarification like we just heard from one of the working group members, I thought it'd be okay to do that unless the members feel otherwise.
This is Member Gaines. I like that idea.
Thank you.
Free to make any comment they want, but if they are in consensus, then just the objections or clarification would be helpful.
Agree. Any objections or comments from the working group? Hearing none. It's before now the members. What's your thoughts on this?
Motion to approve.
As read into the record?
Yeah, as read into the record, this is issue 2, details and guidance needed to ensure uniformity on resolved remote hearing issues via LTAs and assessment appeals manual.
I would second that, Vice Chair.
Been moved by Mr. Gaines and second by our Vice Chair Schaefer. Any comments, questions from the members? Hearing and seeing none. Ms. Davis, will you please call the roll?
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, Ms. Davis, will you please call the next item?
D3, the third sub-issue under the BOE role is the provide training for AAB members and staff, assessors and staff, taxpayers, and other participants, including but not limited to the use of technology and equipment required for remote hearings.
With that, I'm going to have Chris Casad please read into the record the consensus statement.
This is Chris Kazad. The consensus statement on sub-issue D3 reads as follows. Training for AAB staff, AAB members, and all participants is essential and should occur on a regular basis and be instituted as a core part of a county's remote hearing program. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections from the working group or comments? Hearing none, this item is now before us, members.
Vice Chair Schaefer, I note that item 3 is the longest of all the items, but it translates into the very shortest of all the items. I want to commend whoever did that. I would move the adoption of it as read into the record.
It's been moved by Mr. Schaefer, Vice Chair Schaefer. I would go ahead and second that. Any other comments or suggestions from the members? Hearing and seeing none. Ms. Davis, will you please call the roll?
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, Ms. Davis, will you please call the next item?
The fourth sub-issue under BOE's role is whether BOE has a clearinghouse function, ensuring information and communications among all counties, assessors, taxpayers is received and shared.
With that, I'll have Ms. Chris Casad please read into the record consensus statement.
This is Chris Kazad. The consensus statement on sub-issue D4 reads as follows. The BOE has an important clearinghouse role in facilitating communication and training regarding remote hearing procedures, practices, questions, and protections among the counties, and providing transparency for all participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any objections from the working group or any comments on this statement? Hearing and seeing none, this item is now before us, members.
Vice Chair Schaefer, I would move adoption of the item as it was read into the record.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Schaefer.
Member Gaines can second that.
And Member Gaines will second that.
Yeah, thank you.
Hearing and seeing no other comments, Ms. Davis, will you please call the roll?
Chair Vice.
Oh, Ms. Stowers.
Yes, I just want, what does that statement mean, a clearinghouse function? Is that going to require BOE to place something on their website And if so, do we have the technology currently?
Let me ask Ms. Fleming.
Okay, talk to you later.
Good
Is
morning, members, and checking the time. So that is a piece that we are still needing to flesh out the specific details as to whether or not we can use some of the existing technology via a portal or some other aspect, or if an additional element needs to be added. As we nail down that information specifically, we'll report back to the board. Thank you for your question, Deputy Controller.
Ms. Towers, are you good with that?
Yes.
Thank you. With that, Ms. Davis, will you please call the roll?
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. Ms. Davis, will you please call the next item?
Issue D5, the fifth sub-issue under BOE's role is BOE's commitment to publish letters to assessors, to county board, AAB clerks, county councils, interested parties, providing guidance on resolved issues and remaining concerns.
With that, I'm going to have Ms. Chris Cassad please read into the record the consensus statement.
This is Chris Kazad. The consensus statement on sub-issue D5 reads as follows. BOE should provide guidance to counties through letters to assessors and additions to the Assessment Appeals Manual with regard to remote hearing issues and training as they are addressed, and should regularly inform counties of remaining items to be addressed, as well as any new legislation or rulemaking efforts that may occur in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections or comments from the working group? Hearing none, this item is now before us, members.
Motion to approve. And that would be under issue D, BOE role, item 5, publish letters to assessors as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Gaines, second by Ms. Stowers.
That's good.
If there's no other comments or questions, we'll have Ms. Davis call the roll.
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. Ms. Davis, you please read the next item.
Our next item, there are no consensus reached on the following. Issue B, appropriate methods for dealing with document submission.
All right. Members, that concludes our action items on consensus statements for today. Each consensus statement approved will be placed in an LTA by the executive director. The law makes it clear that this is ultimately the member's duty, and we are accountable under this section code 15606, which requires the board, not the ED, to prepare and issue instructions to assessors designed to promote uniformity throughout the state and its local taxing jurisdictions in the assessment of property for the purposes of taxation. With that, Ms. Davis, do we have any unresolved consensus statements where we couldn't agree on the wording that we need to take up now?
Just one moment, Chair, and I will check. We have not received any, Chairman.
Okay. Members, in order to expedite the process for addressing the remaining items where there was no consensus was reached, I ask that each work group participant submit to the members, to Member Cohen and myself, if possible, options for consensus statements on each sub-issue, 4 sub-issues under issue B, methods for dealing with document submissions, and with sub-issue 4, long-term efficiencies under issue C, technology. To the extent possible, we would also appreciate any information you can provide on the new sub-issues identified by the work group. Number 1, efficiencies around scheduling and scheduling mechanisms. 2, establishing a meet and confer process. And 3, offering pre-hearing conferences. With that, members, do you have any closing comments or questions before we leave this agenda item?
Yes, Chair Vasquez, Member Gaines.
Member Gaines, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you and Member Cohen for all the effort that you expended, along with Regina Evans' help on this. I thought it was well laid out, and I think we're providing more clarity for our clerks and for our assessors. So thank you.
Vice Chair Schaefer here. I'd like to thank all of the members of the working group who participated in this and made the product possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Towers?
No comment at this time.
Thank you. Let me turn it over to our Executive Director, Ms. Brenda Fleming, to see if she has any statements or comments to make.
Thank you, members and work group, for the opportunity. We look forward to taking the material that we've heard via the consensus items today. As noted during the discussion, Property Tax Department, along with our legal department, will work together to come up with the LTA. Members, as is our normal process, the LTA will be presented to the board using our normal clearance process for your review and input, and then it will be finalized and submitted for release to the assessors and the AAB community. I really appreciate the time and all of the information and effort that was put into this discussion and the product that we are going to be looking forward to in the LTA. I think it'll be significantly helpful to the AABs. We understand that there is still more work to do, and we do look forward to the continued conversations on this topic at the next upcoming board meeting. I appreciate your time and the leadership from Chair Vasquez and from Board Member Cohen. Very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
oh,
if
yes.
I might just very quickly, as a closing remark, this is Brian Rabowski from CADA. I do want to thank Ms. Fleming for reiterating that there's additional work to be done. We do encourage the board members to look closely at the correspondence, the 2 letters that CADA has provided, identifying issues to be further worked on. And we appreciate the board's efforts in doing that. We also want to highlight the need for caution in converting these consensus items into LTAs. There is a lot of sensitivity around the specifics of the language, and the board members and the working group have worked very closely together to vet out this language. So we believe that there needs to be great care in converting these consensus items as agreed to into a narrative LTA. And we trust that that process will be done with such caution in mind.
Thank you for your comments. We absolutely will hold to the integrity of the discussion, of the process, and to the spirit of exactly what you're saying, to make sure that it's well represented with all the sensitivities around the way that the words are prepared. But again, we appreciate the input, and we'll, as normal, do our very best to make sure that we give the best product possible. So thank you for that.
This is Marcy Berkman, Santa Clara County. I'm wondering if it would be possible for the rest of the work group participants to receive copies of the 2K letters Ms. Rabowski has referenced, so that all the work group can know what we're talking about when we continue to work on this.
Just for note, we've received that information through our board proceedings, and the information will be posted on our website as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you for that.
Thank you. With that, I am extremely grateful to this highly professional group of experts who were giving of their valuable time and providing with us some of this guidance to move us forward. And I really appreciate the fact that, at least in the areas where we did arrive with some consensus, we were able to move forward. And I'm looking forward to continuing on this relationship as we begin to address some of the remaining issues where there was no consensus, to take those up in our meeting next month. And with that, I'm looking at the time, and I'm wondering if it's probably best to take our lunch break now, so then we can continue after lunch the next items. What's the wish of the members?
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. I'm just as ready to continue on. Or we can take a 30-minute lunch break, whatever the majority would like.
This is Yvette Stowers. I need a 30-minute break.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'd like that too, as Member Gaines. Thank you.
All right. I know it's been a little, even though it was a short little time, it's pretty intense here. So why don't we go ahead and take, let me ask staff, is 30 minutes sufficient for a lunch break?
Yes, sir. 30 minutes is fine. Thank you. 30 minutes is fine. Thank you.
Okay. So it's coming up on noon now. So let's say 12:30 we'll reconvene.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Welcome back. I believe we're all here and present, at least through virtual. And we would go ahead, is Ms. Davis available?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Will you go ahead and call the next item, please?
Hey, Ms. Davis, before you continue, this is Henry Nancho, Chief Counsel. Chairman Vasquez, did we call for public comments on the BB item? If we didn't, we may want to ask, have Clerk Davis and AT&T check for public comments on the BB item.
Sure, I don't think we did. No, I'm looking at it now. Can we have Ms. Davis please call for any public comment on this?
AT&T, can you please check to see if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment on any of the previously discussed items?
Okay, once again, if you would like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0 at this time. 1, 0. And allowing a few moments, we do not have anyone queuing up at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Vasquez. Thank you, Clerk Davis.
Ms. Davis, go ahead and please call the next item.
Our next item of the day is CC, Workforce Planning Group Stakeholder Meeting, a presentation of the Workforce Planning Work Group's findings and recommendations for discussion and possible action. Chair Vasquez.
Thank you. Members, because of the valuable testimony and input from the panel of experts on our Workforce Planning Work Group, the board agreed to consider approving an outline for the work group report. Member Gaines and I submitted a detailed, comprehensive outline that includes the basic strategy and content for the report and an executive summary of the outline for your consideration. We would like your approval of the comprehensive outline today with direction to the executive director to move forward in coordination with the Assessors Association in writing the report, so that a rough draft will be available for our review and input at the December meeting. We understand that some details in the outline may need editing and some were omitted that should be included. For example, is the executive director's input on how to incorporate this info, the BOE's modernization plan that a board adopted under Member Cohen's leadership. Another example is the LA County AAB, who indicated that they will face a serious workforce shortage if Proposition 15 passes and may wish to add their data to the report. Our goal is that the board votes to approve the 4 key points of the outline today, including direction to the executive director to communicate with the work group participants and relevant stakeholders to ensure that all information is correct and complete as possible, and will inform the board of our progress at the November meeting and set a date in the December when the completed rough draft report will be posted to the PAN. With that, let me open it up to the members to make any opening remarks. Oh, let me start with Member Gaines first.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair Vasquez. And I just wanted to highlight the importance of making sure that as we proceed forward, that the medium and small counties are accommodated when it comes to workforce planning and training. And it became even more evident in my communication yesterday with my county assessors and how difficult it is to get new hires trained, to find new hires and then to train them, and the distances that exist in my district and all of our districts, but especially representing 30 counties. And Member Cohen has the same challenges, that we have this opportunity with technology that we want to make sure that we're keeping a close eye on, because there are opportunities for innovation, and it is dynamic and it's changing. When we take a look at opportunities for training, some of my assessors brought up some great ideas. Why can't we use experienced staff that are working within the county assessor offices and get them certified for teaching? And that would address a lot of the distance issues, which it's very difficult for small counties to even afford to pay out of pocket to send a new employee to training, or even an experienced one. And I think we could also work with Brenda. In fact, I've got a memo that will be going out to her soon in terms of how the BOE can do this. If we can do this virally, if we can teach classes with experts within the BOE or within the counties, our reach could be greatly extended. And so I just want to keep that in mind, that that as we move forward, it has to be all-encompassing. It has to address the needs of the small, medium, and of course the large counties. But I think what we've found out through all of this is that LA County has been providing the lead, and I think they're doing a fine job. But one size does not fit all, so we want to make sure that we're able to accommodate everybody and what is practical in each of those counties. And on that note, I want to thank Chair Vasquez for all the hard work and putting this together, and look forward to moving forward with it and coming up for solutions, because as we've said, if Prop 15 passes, we've got huge challenges in front of us, many things that we haven't even probably considered, but at least we're talking about it, and we're laying out a plan to figure out how to move forward with it. And I'll just end on that note. I think if we, as the BOE, can make sure that we're providing direction on how to implement dramatic change in the event of the passage of Prop 15, that we could provide a template. We could provide advice, particularly to those smaller counties. So thank you.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Vice Chair Schaefer, go ahead.
You know, if we could just hold our breath for 14 days, the election will come, the election will go, and we'll know where we are. I think within a day or two of the election, have a pretty good idea as to Prop 15. It's going to be here so very soon. I can't conceive of the demands upon my fellow member who has 30 assessors to keep happy. I only have 4.5 or 5, and you've only got a couple or 2 or 3. You know, we're living in a different world there, but I was heartened yesterday to meet with my assessors and find out that some of them do have tentative programs, you know, to deal with it. They're not going to start thinking about it in 2 weeks. They're thinking about it months ago. And, you know, I suggested we could sort of look to all the people that have retired from assessors' offices in the last year and consider them like National Guard, that they've got to be subject to call back in a moment of emergency to help us deal with something. But again, I don't want to be getting my hair in a dandruff. If we can wait a couple of weeks and maybe, you know, get a little results, you know. But I salute Ted dealing with 30 people when I only have to deal with a handful. And I'm sure we'll sit a month from now and we'll be happy no matter how it goes, because we either will have avoided a bullet or we took it, but we've been able to go with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Stowers?
Thank you, Chairman Vasquez. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Chairman Vasquez and Member Gaines for leading this workforce group. As drafted, the outline is a good summary of what the parties have been talking about. And from my understanding, a report would be issued that would basically summarize what they've been talking about, or what we've been talking about really for almost a year. What I'm really looking forward to is seeing some action, some steps, a plan on how we are going to increase the workforce for the county assessors. And I'm not even sure if it's within our authority to increase their workforce, but we can definitely provide them with some insight. But how are we going to increase the BOE's workforce, regardless if Prop 15 passes, because we still need to have a qualified and diverse workforce. So again, thank you guys for taking the lead on this. Hoping that we have more action steps in the near future, tangible action steps, as opposed to a report that's just gonna kill maybe 50 trees. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you for your comments. I mean, we're hoping that when we regroup on this issue in December, we will be prepared and ready to actually have some good action steps and hopefully a path to figure out a way to try to bring in as many folks, not only to the BOE, but also to the counties. Yesterday, when I had my discussion with my assessor in the county, he was, even though Mr. Prang is doing a pretty good job of really trying to expedite this thing and move it as quick as he can, he's finding just the logistics of trying to hire 50 people under COVID is a challenge. It's a huge challenge. So he's kind of holding his breath and hoping for the best in November. But he was mentioning, and I forgot, regardless of what happens with Prop 15, he's looking at Prop 19, which looks like that one's going to pass overwhelmingly, and that's going to create a huge impact on, especially on the transfer of properties throughout the state of California and throughout the counties. So he's already gearing up and trying to get ready for it. So I think whatever we can do to try to move this as quick as possible, I think the better it's going to be for the 58 counties in the state of California. With that, members, what I was looking to do is to briefly discuss each of the 4 key points of the comprehensive outline and see if we have any suggestions or word changes that we should include before we take a vote on each. The first one, number 1, was workforce assessment, recruitment, and retention capacity and needs. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on those or comments. Actually, Member Gaines, on this one, I think is where you were kind of hitting on, making sure that we are definitely taking into consideration both the current and long-term recruitment and retention, and that it should include the relevant data regarding large, mid-sized, and small counties, and the BOE, of course.
Yeah, we're on item 1 of the outline.
Yes. Yes.
Make sure I'm in the right spot here.
Number 1, workforce assessment. Yeah.
Yes. No, that is right. And so I think, we talked about the impact
right
of Prop 15, but it really doesn't matter, right? Because we have a crisis on our hands in terms of workforce and how we're going to get them trained with a lot of baby boomers retiring. And so I think if we can move forward with the model as presented by LA, we also have had discussions with the Los Rios Community College District and with Sierra College. They are both have expressed interest in trying to help coordinate classes that could be provided. But again, I think we need to, for those smaller counties, make sure that we're providing more opportunities for education on a remote basis. And in terms of a tangible follow-up, I think what I'd like to do is continue working with Executive Director Fleming on how do we implement some of these ideas. Because we need to come up, I think, with some low-cost, simple solutions that provide a pathway for training that could rely on some of the talent that exists throughout our counties and with the BOE. I think it's incumbent on us as the BOE to make sure that we're providing the classes that are needed. And again, the counties are hurting for some of the advanced classes. We've had our own workforce challenges within the BOE that has created problems in providing those classes. And I know that we are working on our own workforce challenges at the BOE, but I think we need to continue to accelerate that so that we can actually follow up on what we're recommending in our own study.
Thank you. Let me ask and see if there's anybody, if AT&T could try to see if there's any of the members from the work group or stakeholders that might be on the line.
Are we on the agenda?
Ted,
AT&T moderator, can you check to see if there's anyone that's in the work group who'd like to make a comment at this time?
Yes. Yeah, let me make an announcement real quick. If you like to ask a question, just queue up by doing 10, and I will get your name. I will give you a line number, and you'll be responding by your line number. If you will go ahead and do that at this time, if you have any questions. Not hearing any questions at this time.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the members on this first number 1 workforce assessment? If there's none, then why don't we go ahead and move on to number 2, if we could, which was the compensation and classification plan.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to have a motion regarding the first point, or would you just like to move forward to the second?
Well, you know what? Maybe we should, and then we'll take each one, I guess. Members, if there's no other comments or suggestions, are the members comfortable with just moving this item as presented by Mr. Gaines and myself?
So move.
It's been moved by Ms. Stowers. And I will go ahead and second that. If there's no other comments or questions, can we get a roll call on the first number 1 item, workforce assessment, recruitment and retention, capacity and needs?
Chair Vasquez?
Aye.
Just vote aye, Mike.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
aye. I didn't even see myself.
Member Gaines?
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers?
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, let's move on to number 2, compensation classification plan. Members, it's possible that a statewide compensation survey with Cal HR may not be completed by the date needed for this report, but the goal is to put in as much data as we have so that we can inform the legislators and the governor of the steps we are taking and the types of modernization solutions being proposed. Do we have any comments or suggestions on this item from the members? Ms. Stowers.
I think a survey is very important, but I was just a little confused, and maybe you guys could clarify how this survey in coordination with the county assessors and Cal HR, when I don't believe Cal HR has any authority over local pay. I just didn't understand how that would work. Are you looking to do a survey and with the goal of seeing how we can increase the pay of state employees, which am I lost? Increase the pay of state employees, which I understand.
No, that's a good question. Is Brenda Fleming, our executive director, on the line?
Yes, members, thank you. To complement what Deputy Controller Stowers is indicating, Cal HR focuses on state employees. It's the scope of their responsibilities typically. So one of the things that we'll have to actually do is engage more as we drill down on these items. And the guidance for the report, we'll drill down a little bit more to find out how you want to scope this. I believe Assessor Gakel's on the line with us, but the CalHR and the state processes are distinct and separate from the county practices, albeit there may be information, I'm anticipating that there's information that we can glean from that survey that we might be able to leverage for some of the assessors. Till we look at the data a little bit more, it's going to be difficult to tell that, but for the most part, as the Deputy Controller is indicating, CalHR works on state classifications. So I definitely can work with the assessors to get a sense of how county administration handles their recruitments and classifications.
Thank you.
If I can make one other note, though, just for reference, as we're looking at the classifications, I will be working with my staff to clarify, as it relates to appraisers and auditor appraisers, anything that we can do that, and I'm going to be careful here because I haven't vetted this with my staff yet, actually, to see if there's anything in any part of our requirement as relates to classifications that, like I said, that they could take advantage of, or if there's anything that is causing a constraint or a restriction with any of those guidelines. If anything in the MQs, for example, are causing a problem that's impeding our ability to effectively recruit for appraisers and auditors, and I'm sorry, MQs, we mean minimum qualifications. If there's anything in the minimum qualifications that is restrictive, I'd like to be able to address that.
Chair Vasquez?
Yes, member, is that Don Gakel I hear?
Yes. Don Gakel, Stanislaus County Assessor and President of CAA. I wanted to just kind of get a rundown on the way things work locally. All counties generally have typically like an 8-county survey, and they will include counties that are similar in size, makeup, region, to kind of establish and look at compensation among those counties as a baseline, and then actual salaries and classifications are determined through kind of a meet and confer negotiating process with unions. So all those things are personnel issues with local unions, and I say that the Human Resource CEO's office will look at 8-county surveys. Most of ours for Stanislaus County are in the Central Valley, and understandably, including from Sacramento down south. So that's the way it works on the local level.
Thank you. Are there any other stakeholders or any members from the work group? Maybe we can get AT&T to check.
AT&T,
once again,
can you
if you have
check?
a member from
Go ahead.
once again, if you have a member from the work group who would like to queue up, you may press 1 then 0 at this time. And there is no one queuing up at this time. Please continue.
Chairman Vasquez, this is Henry Nanjo, Chief Counsel. There apparently is a problem going on with the video. Can we take a 5-minute pause to try to work out the issue?
Yeah, I noticed that we have like 4 different screens on my screen right now.
So members, excuse me, thank you, Chief Counsel Nanjo. I'm working with Member Schaefer's office now to try to get it resolved.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. My screen is okay.
I think it's for all of us. I'm having a similar problem.
Yeah, I'm looking at 4 different screens are cut into one.
Page 6.
Well, we should have 4 different screens, one with one person on each screen, or am I talking about a different scene?
What page should I give him?
I think it's a little more confusing than that, Vice Chair.
Chairman Vasquez, this is Brenda Fleming. Can I ask for a 5-minute break, please?
Sure. Let's take a 5-minute break real quick.
Members, please mute your phones and your cameras. Thank you.
Thank you.
Page 7 of the report, we were talking about the need for compensation. For additional information, it's cited to refer to a document prepared by the California Assessors Association, which is a great document. But my concern is that the reference to that document is caltex.org. And my comment is, to the extent that we feel like we need to reference the document, I highly recommend that we reference the document from the CAA site and not Caltex.
Okay, well noted.
Yeah, this is Member Gaines. That's fine. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Ms. Towers, was there anything else?
That's it for now.
No, this is good. I mean, this is that's what we're here to do, to try to hopefully get some clarity on anything that may be a little confusing or incorrect. With that, let's try this again. If we can get AT&T to check if there's any comments from the work group or stakeholders.
Yes, if there's any comment, you may queue up at this time by pressing 1, then 0 on your telephone keypad. There is no one queuing up at this time. Please continue.
Thank you. Members, if we don't hear any other comments or suggestions, I would like to entertain a motion to approve item 2 with the 2 comments and suggestions from Ms. Stowers.
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Stowers.
Second.
Second by Member Gaines. Hearing and seeing no other comments or questions, Mrs. Davis, have you called the roll?
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, members, we'll move on to number 3, and that's the appraiser and audit appraiser certification and training plan. Do you have any comments or suggestions on this item? And it's basically the basic description of the appraiser and the audit appraiser certification and training plan. And members, just another quick note on this one as you're looking through it. Excuse me. This is where, at least in LA County, in talking to Jeff Prang yesterday, he mentioned that the community colleges are really moving forward and engaging and being a real good resource in terms of providing that training and the coursework to try to expedite this as soon as possible.
Chairman Vasquez?
Ms. Towers, go ahead.
Yes, I'm not sure if it's appropriate for item number 3 or item number 4 when it comes to training and education. And I realize that we did not have a speaker from the Cal State University system, but I have been sharing with Ms. Fleming that we have an opportunity to also partner with them as far as designing a bachelor's degree in real estate appraisal. So I would like to share the information with Ms. Fleming as she moves forward with the report.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing that material.
Vice Chair Schaefer, this item runs 4 pages. You know that. It's pretty extensive.
let me see if I can get AT&T to check and see if there's any comments or other issues that the work group or stakeholders might want to raise on this item number 3.
If you'd like to comment on item number 3, you may put yourself in the queue by pressing 1 and then 0 at this time. Do not show anyone queuing up at this time, sir.
Thank you. Members, this item is now before us.
This is Chair Schaefer. I have a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Going ahead to Sacramento County, the statement is made that COVID presents increased opportunities to reach more people. I'm not sure I understand that. And then the next bullet is the appraisers must be well-trained in appraisal and appeals to adequately defend assessed values against other concepts such as dark stork theory. I don't know what dark stork theory is. So it's sort of hard for me to read some of this stuff that is maybe inside baseball.
Member Vasquez?
I hear Member Gaines and then somebody else. I couldn't hear the other one.
Yes, this is David Young from the
David Young
staff, the deputy director.
Go ahead.
If I just may clarify, it's actually not dark stork theory. It's dark store, as in a department store or a large warehouse. So just a minor correction. I'm sure it was just a typo.
Does that solve your question, Vice Chair?
I thought we were referencing
Star Wars or something?
The member that had a baby, okay?
No, sir.
And maybe I could, this is Member Gaines, may I provide some clarity on
Sure, go ahead, Member Gaines.
The coronavirus issue. I think what we're really addressing is the economy has thrown us into a recession, and so there's people in the private sector that are looking for positions, and we have found that is evident for the BOE in terms of a few of our last hires, and that also there's flexibility if we move forward and there's a paradigm shift in terms of how people are employed and where they work, right? So, I mean, if you can work at home, maybe the opportunity for a position at one of the county assessor's offices or the BOE, no commute, or maybe you commute in occasionally, that might open up the job market. It was pointed out to me yesterday in comments given by my county assessors that can go both ways. So Carl Weiland was, Assessor Weiland in El Dorado County was sharing where he lost an employee who went back to his former employer because that employer was offering the opportunity to have the individual work out of their home. So it's dynamic and changing, but I guess it can work for us, but there's an example where it worked against us.
Thank you for the clarifications, member. Thank you.
No, it's a whole new norm, different norm. And you're right, Member Gaines, we have to be prepared and ready for this new change. Is there any other comments or suggestions or recommendations on number 3? Hearing none and seeing none, members, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve number 3 as stated, the Appraisers and Audit Appraiser Certification and Training Plan.
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Stowers. And I will second that. And if there's no other comments or questions, Ms. Davis, you would please call the roll.
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, members will move on to number 4, community colleges, curriculum and partnership opportunities. This is the basic description of the community college curriculum and partnership opportunities. Do we have any comments or suggestions on this item? Hearing none, let me open it up to, if we can get AT&T to check if there's anybody on the public line from the stakeholder group or work group.
AT&T, can you check to see if there's anyone on the public line who'd like to make a comment on this matter at this time?
Certainly. Please press 1, then 0. If you'd like to make a comment, please press 1, 0. And allowing a few moments here, we do not have anyone queuing for a question or a comment.
Thank you. Members, this item now is before us on the community college curriculum and partnership opportunities. Hearing none and seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept number 4, the community colleges curriculum and partnership opportunities as presented in this outline.
Vice Chair, I would so move.
It's been moved by our Vice Chair, second by Ms. Stowers. Seeing and hearing no other comments. Ms. Davis, if you please call the roll on number 4.
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. We will move on. Let's see, I believe. I think that was, yeah, that was the 4th one. With that, let me check with AT&T real quickly if there are any brief comments from the working group as we wrap up the outline basically, and as we move it forward to the executive director. If we could just check with AT&T first before we close it out.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Would there be comments from the general public too, or just the working group?
We can open it up if there's members from the public as well, because this is the last item.
AT&T, can you check to see if there are any comments for this last item?
Certainly. Once again, if you would like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. If you'd like to make a comment, press 1, then 0.
I think we've left that. I'm not sure. I'm just.
And allowing a few moments, we do not have anyone in queue at this time.
About my comment.
Thank you.
Your comments.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Which item are we on?
Vice Chair Schaefer here.
Yes. I'm going to go ahead and just, well, let me ask any of the members if they have any closing comments before we leave this, and then I will close it out myself.
Chairman Vasquez?
Yes, Ms. Stowers, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, again, I'd just like to thank you and Chairman Member Gaines for taking this project on. Obviously, having a qualified, diverse workforce is extremely important for us all, and I look forward to the progress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Vasquez,
Member,
Just wait till we go to the next item.
if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Member Gaines. So I just, I want to thank you for all of your effort and the stakeholders involved in this. And, I think next steps, we want to be, make sure we're in communication with the executive director in terms of the LTA and that going out to our interested parties and our county assessors. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, first I'd like to extend a special thanks to Member Cohen, who originally proposed the modernization plan and this workforce work group initiative, and did a significant amount of work to move it forward. Although we were sidetracked for a while due to the COVID-19, I think we've made great progress, and I'm grateful for her leadership. Secondly, I really appreciate the time put into this by many assessors and their staff, as well as the BOE, David Young is specifically, and the Community College Chancellor's Office, several vice chancellors who have gone out of their way to provide information assistance and offer partnership opportunities. I think all of this will help us ensure that both the counties and the BOE will be able to increase and develop a workforce fully prepared to perform our constitutional assessment and responsibilities and ensure that the correct amount of property tax revenues are collected. And with that, you know what, I think we should probably officially, I'd like to make a motion that we direct our executive director now to take this outline and take it to the next level and prepare that report that would come back to us in our December meeting.
Vice Chair Schaefer, I would like to second your remarks on that, and we can now proceed to the motion you recommended.
Thank you. It's been moved and second. Is there any other comments, questions? Seeing and hearing none, let me get Ms. Davis to call the roll.
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. Thank you once again, specifically like I mentioned, and a special thanks to Member Gaines, who shared his staff on this and did a lot of legwork as well. Appreciate it. With that, Ms. Davis, will you please call the next item?
Our next item of the day is I-1, Chief Counsel Matters, Board Governance Part 2, proposed amendments of the board members' governance policy based on last month's annual review. Mr. Nanjo?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Davis. Chairman Vasquez, Vice Chairman Schaefer, honorable members, Deputy Controller Stowers, what you have attached to PAN is the governance policy. As I was asked to at the last meeting, I collected comments from the various offices and have reflected the various offices who have submitted comments in the various colors. At this point, I believe the chairman and vice chair was kind of leading up a working group on this matter, so I will turn it back over to Chairman Vasquez.
Thank you. Members, if there are no further questions, well, first of all, let me ask if there's any questions of Mr. Nanjo to the members.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. I just have a comment to make on the issue that we will be bringing up, which is evaluation of Bagley-Keene in the year 2020, based in part on the 2015 report of the Little Hoover Commission, but we won't be getting into that right now, other than to say that we have the same goal that our chief counsel does, but our march towards transparency requires that we have some communication with each other in a legal manner, and you'll be hearing more from me on that as I develop our position.
Thank you. Member Gaines.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Vasquez. My question to Mr. Nanjo would be further review of the Vargas versus City of Salinas case as it has to do with the First Amendment right to speak on issues, election-related issues, whether it's an initiative or beyond that. So I'd like if you could supply myself and the board members with more information regarding that case, that'd be helpful.
I can provide some information. However, because it's a campaign, that case primarily relates to campaign finance laws. It would be inappropriate for us to give guidance on that. I'm fairly limited in what I can do along those lines. The actual proper entity to give guidance on campaign finance rules would be the Fair Political Practices Commission. And I can talk more with your staff on that.
Okay, but we're moving forward with a change to our governance policy that has to do with free speech. So I'm going to be looking for some clarity in terms of what our free speech rights are as elected officials. So if you can't provide
to that extent,
I guess I'll have to find someone that can provide that clarity for me.
I mean, I could provide some guidance, but those issues do run into the purview of the FPPC, but I can work with your office to try to get you the information you need, Member Gaines.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Nanjo?
Chairman Vasquez?
Ms. Towers, go ahead.
Well, I'll wait. I don't have any questions for Chief Counsel.
All righty. Remember, if there are no further questions for Mr. Nanjo, we'll have each members who submitted proposed updates to discuss them now. However, since Member Cohen is unavailable today, I'd like to wait until she can be present before we make any decisions on the actual wording of the proposals. If you don't mind, the Vice Chair and I will start since we submitted a fact sheet stating the rationales for all the proposed updates. I am not going to discuss the details of the proposals today, except for a few items that I'll mention in a minute. I do want to summarize three things the proposals are intended to accomplish. One, to add missing statutory language and references so that future boards understand exactly what the law says we can or must do as we do and we cannot do. Number two, in the section listing 24 rules and responsibilities of the board, quote, the entire statute, since these powers of duties are assigned exclusively to the board, not to the executive director, and the members are directly accountable for all acts or omissions, even if the failure was due to the executive director or her staff, board members can be impeached or recalled. And this would be under the section 3020. Members may be impeached under the California Constitution, Article 2, Section 1319, Elections Code, Section 11001. Number three, add language clarifying the members' right to access all public information of the agency, including personnel, PCP's legislative analysis, because the members are not directly responsible to the people under the Constitution for the transaction of the people's business in the agency. And this is under the Government Code Section 6252, 8.5 specifically grants this right to elected officials. We have 3 specific proposals in our fact sheet to discuss with the possibility the possibility develop a consensus on. The first 2 will require assistance from the executive director, which means she needs time to get started on them as soon as possible in order to provide the operational guidance to us at the November meeting. Number 1, first proposal is Section 7, Paragraph A, the Bagley-Kane Open Meeting Act. Our goal is to add language stating what the board members can discuss outside of a meeting in varying circumstances and situations. But the AG opinions, court cases, and Little Hoover Commission's reports interrupting it are complex and lengthy. Our proposal is to direct the executive director to develop a set of Bagley-Kane protocols and procedures that provide board members some assurances on the types of subject matters and communications with each other that are not violation of the law. I will defer to the vice chair's expertise on the details as he has done a great deal of research and wants to discuss some of his findings with you. But first, members, are you willing to approve the proposal to have the ED develop Bagley-Kane protocols for our review and consideration that focuses on what we can do and what is outside of the actual provisions of the Act? Members, do you agree or have any comments or suggestions on this as we move forward? Ms. Stowers, yes, go ahead.
Let me first start with this. I want to thank you and Member Gaines and Member Schaefer and Member Corn for originally adopting the governance policy that we drafted and looking at it and coming up with suggestions on how it needs to be or should be revised. That, to me, if you guys care, show that this is a governance policy for all the board members and we're all taking ownership of it. So I want to commend everyone on that. With respect to your actual question of Bagley-Kane and having the director provide additional protocols, are we saying that what's provided in your board transition binder is not enough information? Or are we challenging what's in that binder?
If you're asking me, I think what's missing is that, there's nothing, well, I couldn't find anything where it says what we can do. It's all what we cannot do, right?
I mean, that's definitely the way the governance document was written off, thanks to yours truly. But so then you're saying that's the same thing for, in you guys' opinion, that's the same thing for Bagley-Kane?
Yes, you're just really looking for more practical guidance, really.
And would that guidance be inserted into the governance policy, or would that just be an additional operational memo?
If the members are comfortable with it, I'd like to see it included, but that's up to the members.
We're tasked for that.
Yes, this is Vice Chair Schaefer. Am I next?
Yes, go ahead, Vice Chair.
As far as protocols being developed on where Bagley-Kane is today, I don't want the executive director to be involved in developing protocols. That's our job as policymakers, and you'll be hearing from myself with the help of our chair and our other members. I want you to know that my attorney, my chief deputy, and I have been working with yourself, Chair Vasquez, and Chief Counsel to develop some practical guidances. The problems we have is that today we have almost zero communication with each other. Consequently, important matters are often negotiated not between us over coffee, but by lobbyists and by third parties, and decisions are made at staff level that should be made at our level, all out of sight of the public, and I don't think that's good. We're even afraid to to discuss unimportant matters like where do we adjourn our meeting to, or what time do we start the meeting? We started off by moving the meeting from, I think, 9:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock back when I came on board, because it was originally set due to airplane travel of a former member or former chairman who might be chairman of our meeting at a given meeting. That's really not something the public has any insight on, and we should be able to discuss a lot of procedural matters that have zero financial consequences to anybody, you know, except a few pieces of paper. We need to re-examine this problem. So I just want you to know that there is a quotation from the Little Hoover Report, which we will be bringing up for our meeting next month. It says, due to the limits on informal discussions among elected and appointed bodies, our government is becoming less transparent, not more, as decision-making is increasingly driven down and out of public sight to government staffers who are not accountable to the voters. I'm all for government staffers, but you know, we are the elected people, and we are the people that should be making these decisions. Lobbyists and other third parties are very helpful to us, but they realize there's a void there. They realize restraints on decision makers can also skillfully pollinate decision-making bodies with individual conversations that they make to subtly and privately steer everybody towards consensus. And we really need less of lobbyists and less of other third parties, and we need more informal, procedural, informal conduct on stuff from the weather to what time the meetings start, as to who's going to do what. And I find that my colleagues are afraid to take a telephone call from me about anything. That's not good. So I will be massaging this issue further and reporting to you at our November meeting, and I'm hopefully that by the time 2021 rolls around, we'll have a little better understanding that we should not be afraid of each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the members?
Yeah, Chair Vasquez, this is Member Gaines.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for including this. I think it could provide more clarity so that we know, you know, what we can and cannot talk about to each other. So I support moving forward on this and seeing if it can be clearer for us.
I appreciate that. With that, members, let me move to number 2. The second.
So, I'm sorry. Are we? So I'm still. Chairman Vasquez, I believe you said something regarding Bagley King and directing the executive director come up with communication protocols that provide more of what you can do. I believe I just heard from Member Schaefer saying, no, that is not what he wants. He wants to present his analysis of Bagley King at the November meeting with the hopes that we as a board would adopt his understanding of the rule. So I don't think that we could move forward on this issue because we don't have any clear direction for the executive director, if at least Mr. Schaefer is saying that is not what he wants. And as far as what I would like to see, I just went back to the original. I'm sorry, my dog is barking. I just went back to the original governance plan, and it did provide a couple of paragraphs there on regarding Bagley King. So at the very minimum, I would like for that to remain.
Ms. Stowers, here's what I was kind of envisioning. Let me know if you're comfortable with this. What I was envisioning is that now that, you know, we've flushed out some of this, and of course, you know, waiting to hear also for Ms. Cohen to have an opportunity to weigh in as well, that this would all come to our executive director, and she would come present whatever suggestions we've made so far, and you have Vice Chair Schaefer, who's also working on the legal side of this and would like to, at some point, I'm assuming, come to us with his recommendation that then we would discuss. It looks like it probably won't happen until either the November or December meeting on this particular issue, and then see if there's consensus from the board.
Vice
Chair Schaefer?
Yes. Chair Vasquez, I think it's a little premature to get our executive director involved. We have not presented our thoughts to our executive director yet, and at such time as we do, then we can give her some direction. But I think right now it's still in our hands.
Okay. Ms. Stowers, is that what you were kind of envisioning?
Well, I think that we're not at. My envision is to we follow Bagley King, which we as a board we do.
We have
and
to.
Two, and we have done an excellent job of that. And two, we follow the advice of our chief counsel, which is Mr. Henry Nagel. And now I'm open for hearing from Member Schaefer in the future on how he believes that Bagley King should operate for this body. And if he will, it seems like it should be his analysis that he should present to us, like we have done on other things where members have taken the leadership on, put it in writing and submit the memo. And because of Bagley King, it has to go on the pan. So as long as Mr. Schaefer is willing to take that on, I'm open to receiving that information and we taking a position on it once it's provided to us and we have an open meeting. But going back to the original governance, I realized that it doesn't give a lot of information on how to operate within Bagley King. It just tells you what you can and cannot do. Again, if the members feel that the transition binder is not enough, then let's provide some more guidance on what you can and cannot do. But I think I actually agree with Mr. Schaefer that if this body feels that we're interpreting Bagley King incorrectly, which I don't think we are, but I think we should hold off and getting the executive director involved until he has an opportunity to plead his case. It's just that simple. So I wouldn't do any action on that section right now until Mr. Schaefer puts his brief together.
Okay.
Vice Chair Schaefer here.
Yes, Vice Chair, go ahead.
Well, I want to thank Ms. Stowers. I agree with her that we all want to follow Bagley King, but I've grown up on the Brown Act as a city councilman, and I've been involved now 2 years with Bagley King. Bagley King doesn't tell us what we can do and what we cannot do. Bagley King tells us what we cannot do and what we cannot do. And so I am just trying to listen more to the Little Hoover Commission, which is some of our finest minds among the senators and among the assemblymen who all agree that we have the same goal. It's just that we need to be able to talk to each other on a whole bunch of things and not abandon it to the lobbyists and other third parties. We should not be afraid to talk to each other. And I know my days on the city council in San Diego, we had a lot of conversations that had absolutely nothing to do with our docket. But we can't not, or if they do have something to do with the docket, like, are we going to have a luncheon meeting once a month, or when are we going to start the meeting, or who's going to be our chairman for this week, or there are a lot of decisions that we make that have nothing to do with the clients out there that are involved financially in the work of the state of California. And as long as the Bagley Keene Act tells us what we can't do and what we can't do, I think we have to call upon the great vision of the Little Hoover Commission and just decide that that's appropriate. And there's been a couple of court cases, at least one I know, that have indicated that the conduct involved was not a violation of Bagley-Keene. I called up Mr. Bagley on the telephone. He's, I think, 90 years of age and wasn't particularly happy to get a call from me because I'm a Democrat. But he was cordial, and he's sort of not surprised that people are looking at what he hath wrought. And I think we'd have a lot of applause from Capitol Hill if we can clarify this. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Stowers, I think there's an agreement. We don't need to actually vote on this. Why don't we just hold off and give Mr. Vice Chair Schaefer an opportunity to present his case?
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay. So with that, let's move on to number 2. The second proposal in section 9, paragraph F, communications with the executive director or designated staff and assistants in responding to inquiries and correspondence. Members, the information in the current policy is inadequate, time-consuming for everyone, and omits the board's legal authority to confer the state officers or employees. Our proposed recommendation is that the ED develop communications protocols so that open and reliable lines of communication may be implemented between members and the executive director and her respective deputy directors, chiefs, and taxpayer rights advocates in order to address member inquiries from stakeholders and taxpayers who are entitled to tax administration and appeals processes that are fair, transparent, consistent, equitable, and impartial under AB 102, Section 2, A, Government Code Section 15610. The communications protocols should reflect the language in both Section 15600 and Section 15610. Section 15610 authorizes board members to confer with state officers or employees of this state. The Section 15600 does not prohibit the board members from conferring. Rather, it prohibits members from appointing, removing, disciplining, assigning, reassigning, promoting, demoting, or issuing orders to any employee. Do we have any comments or questions or suggestions on this one?
Yes, Chair Vasquez, Member Gaines.
Yes. Member Gaines, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but can you clarify where we are on our agenda? I think you're muted. I'm sorry. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I moved on to number 2, the second proposal in section 9, which followed what we just finished, which was the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act.
Section 9 is on page 5.
Okay, is that page 5?
You know what? Mine are numbered different. Mine says number 36 on the bottom, so I think yours is numbered different.
Member Gaines, if you're looking at the attachment, I believe it's referencing the material on page 7 of the fact sheet.
Thank you, Brenda.
Paragraph F, it's at the top of the page, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
Chairman Vasquez?
Yes, Ms. Stowers, go ahead.
Okay, I was just reading along, and what's the end goal here? Are you looking to have a protocol where that the board members are communicating more directly with BOE staff?
I think, you know, and when you're looking at the governance, it's not real clear, at least to me, and I was wondering if we can get some clarity on this. Specifically, you know, I know we all communicate with the executive director And I was just wanted to see if we could designate staff, specifically the high end, I'm thinking, right? Folks that are responsible for really carrying out the duties in their respective departments, right?
I can appreciate that desire, but I would warn that we go tip a little softly on that area, because, you know, I know you guys don't like to hear about AB 102, which is now part of the statute, but it's really clear that the board members do not direct staff. And
I agree.
So that's why I said we have to talk softly on, if you're going, now you're going to start communicating with them. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of communicating and give the appearance of giving direction, and then even worse, going back to past practices of intimidating employees. So
no. That's far from what I'm looking at.
I know, that's why I said we have to, you know, be careful in that one. I don't want to step on any landmines.
No. And actually, to your point, I think it just, you know, this document, I think it needs just to be a little bit more clear, so there's no misunderstandings, basically, right, from the members.
Okay.
And more than anything, I guess, you know, like I think what you're hitting on, and what I'm hoping this takes us to, is that we basically, when we're working with the executive director, is pretty much direct her to make sure whether she works with her top staff in addressing whatever issues we come up with, right? As we hear from our taxpayers.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more than anything is just try to hopefully help facilitate, you know, some of the problems that we're hearing from our respective constituents.
Chair Vasquez, this is Member Gaines.
Yes, Member Gaines, go ahead.
So I appreciate Member Stowers' comments, and I think they're good, and we need to be just careful of this, because I would think any communication with a staff person would have to be integrated with the executive director.
Agreed.
So, but it sounds like you're trying to address an issue of, is it maybe follow-up? So let's say a board member has an inquiry, and maybe they're not getting the response in a timely manner. I'm just trying to figure out the purpose of this.
Well, I'm actually kind of putting it on the executive director and let her look at the language that we're proposing, and have her come back and hopefully give us something that makes, one, stays within the law, obviously, and then two, hopefully helps us or facilitates, you know, our needs as members.
Yeah. Okay. Is there an issue with things not being addressed quickly enough through the executive director? Have you experienced issues of that nature? I'm just trying to get to the basis of the request.
You know, me personally, no. I was actually more referring to the document.
Okay. So it's not clear enough in the current governance policy?
At least to me.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
All right. So currently, if, let's say you have just an issue with the constituent and you want communication with the taxpayer rights advocate, we do have a protocol of how we communicate with the advocate, and I believe the advocate has a special email box that we send those inquiries to. Is that not working for us? Because it is working for me.
No, well, you know, like I was mentioning to Member Gaines, me personally, I haven't encountered this. I was just referring more to the document, the way it's written.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, because the document is silent on it.
Yes.
And we have these practices in place, but it's not reflected in the document, and mainly because the practices have come to play since the adoption of the document.
That's my guess. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
No, for me, it's just more, you know, as you know, since we're looking at this document, I thought, well, let's take a look at it and hopefully try to clean it up a little bit, basically, right?
Okay. I'm okay with, documenting the communication protocol on what's working for us, and if we think we need to change it, then we change it, as long as we're still in compliance with the law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that.
Okay.
No, and as you'll see, as we move forward, especially even on the, the whole chair election, this last year, there was confusion whether it was supposed to take place in December or January, right? And I'm just saying, we just need to be real clear on it. That's all.
Okay.
So there's no misinterpretations, I guess.
Okay.
Any other comments or suggestions from the members? If not, I'd like to, I guess, let's see if ask AT&T if there's any public comment on this before we move forward.
AT&T moderator, can you check to see if there are any public comments on this matter?
Certainly. Once again, if you would like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. 1, 0. And at this time, we have no one in queue.
Thank you. So members, if we're comfortable, I would just like to, propose these recommendations to our executive director to develop this communications protocol, if we're good with that.
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Stowers. I will second that. And hearing and seeing no other comments, if we could have a roll call, Ms. Davis.
Forward these
Chair Vasquez.
recommendations to the executive director. I can't.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
Aye.
So that's unanimous of those present. With that, members, we'll move on to the next item, which is the transition statement. Basically, I want to thank the members specifically on this issue of the rotation, which I kind of touched on, I think, at a previous meeting, on the election. There's, to me, there just seemed to be some confusion on a couple things. One, when it actually is supposed to take place. And then, since we're looking at it, I was going to suggest specifically, as we're looking at, I guess it's, this is the, specifically on the top of page 14 of the policy, of the whole rotation election policy options, to make sure we include everything and maybe get a sense of where we'd like to go, that all options can be considered, next month. And this is something that I'm not looking for any decision, obviously, today, because I'd like to obviously have Member Cohen weigh in on this, and I'm hoping she'd be able to join us at our meeting in November. And what I was looking at is kind of looking at the three different options on the rotation and election of the board chair and the vice chair. The first one is the current rotation option, which is that the board chair and vice chair should serve 1-year terms from January to December, and each position will rotate on an annual basis in order for the equalization, order of the equalization districts. Option 2 is that a 1-year election option that was under section 7 that reads, conduct election of the board chair and vice chair in January of each year. And then option 3 is the one I'd like to recommend, and that is that we move from a 1 year to a 2 year election, and I'm going to say kind of a hybrid / rotation option, whereby we would have an election in January for both the chair and the vice chair to serve 2 years. But in the effect, if we are deadlocked, for example, split 2-2 on the board, the elected board, that then it would revert back to a rotation for that cycle. And primarily what I'm thinking and looking at, having served as the chair this year, and actually I actually brought this up when we first got elected and we began taking over as the board. I remember bringing it up at our first meeting when we were in the position to elect or rotate our chair, and I suggested at that time that whoever is the chair really should have it for 2 years. And actually, Member Cohen struck it down, but then only later to find out at the end of her first year, she realized that 1 year is not enough. Especially, for just to remind the members, whoever's the chair also gets to sit on the franchise tax board with the controller. In this case, it's Betty Yee, and then whoever the governor appoints. And that's only a committee of 3, but they only meet quarterly. So whoever our chair represents us on the franchise tax board, you really only get to go to 3 or 4 meetings, if that, in a year, which isn't a whole lot of time to do anything. That's why I was suggesting that whoever is the chair moving forward, that we allow that person to carry it out for at least 2 years, and then we would come back and revisit it for the next 2 years. And actually, I had this conversation with Member Cohen at the end of her first term, and she realized, she came to me and said, you were right. We really should have 2 years. And she was asking me at that time if we should change it. And I said, well, we need to change the governance because, it's in our governance, the way it's written. So I said, if the members are in accordance with it, I think we should do it. But obviously, it has to be brought before the board and decided on before we could do it. So now, having served my first year, once again, to me, it just kind of reaffirms that, in fact, whoever becomes the chair in January should have the opportunity, he or she, to be in this office or in the position for at least 2 years. And, in light of what's happening, with this whole COVID situation, I mean, this year to me just blew by so fast. And primarily because, we really, I don't feel I miss the personal contact. We haven't been able to, I think we had, well, as a chair, I think I had maybe two meetings where we actually met in person. The rest of these have all been virtual through Zoom. And I don't know about you folks, but I'm not a very techie person. So it just, to me, it just feels so impersonal. But anyway, moving forward, just wanted to put that out there. And if somebody else has any other options that we should consider, by all means, if you feel free to raise them now, I would entertain or open to hear those. Or if you need some time to think about this, please, get it to our executive director so we can have this in a timely manner before we act on it at our November meeting. I don't know what people's thoughts are on this, but that's where I'm at.
Chairman Vasquez?
Yes, Ms. Stowers, go ahead.
Considering that I would never be chair or vice chair, I do have some thoughts.
Let me hear.
And I did submit them to the chief counsel, and I believe it's in the document. we've adopted this rotational policy. The current board adopted it, and the prior board adopted it, which we would think that at the end of December, the position of the chair and vice chair automatically transfers over to the next district member. But for some reason, it's never happened that way. It's never been a smooth transition. We've always had some debate about, do we still have to vote for the chair and vice chair? And I would admit one reason why we had the debate this past January is because the governance document had some conflicting language in it. One part of the document said you vote, another part of the document adopted our policy and said you rotate.
Exactly, that's my point. Exactly. You're
Yeah.
right on.
So I did submit language, and I think I just found it. And basically, what I was submitting was saying, and it was just a suggestion, not asking for anyone to vote on it. And I can't even say that I'm 100% with it right now. But let me share my language. It was to have a mandatory election of the chair and vice chair by the December meeting, and whoever is elected will become the chair and vice chair in January and serve a 12-month term. I also had language in there that there would be nothing prohibiting the chair from being elected and serving a consecutive term. Should the board desire for that person to continue, have an election, get 3 votes, and that person continues. And I also had language in there to make it mandatory for the election of the chair and vice chair to appear on the agenda every December, so that we don't run into the problem that we had from our prior board. Not blaming you guys, because you guys are great, but we don't run into that problem of it never being agendized. So those were my suggestions. But I see the value of someone having the job for 2 years in order to get things accomplished.
Exactly. That's where I'm headed.
So I definitely see that value, especially for BOE in our current environment. All due respect to the Franchise Tax Board, their operation is different.
Yes.
So the BOE chair membership on the Franchise Tax Board, yes, that person attends the meetings and approves budget change proposals, and whether the agency is going to sponsor legislation. But as you know, the operation is different, and they're also a GovOp agency. So there's not a lot for the chair of the BOE to do with respect to the day-to-day operations of the Franchise Tax Board.
Well, let me give you one example on the Franchise Tax Board, since you brought that up. When I took over as the chair at the beginning of this year, I had my orientation and briefing with Selfie, who's the executive director, great executive director, and she was sharing me all these little things that we could do on the Franchise Tax Board as a member. And the one that really hit home with me is that they have this mobile unit, and you probably know this, that basically you can take out to your district, well, to anywhere in the state for that matter, and give like a workshop or do outreach to inform, especially small businesses, of what they need to be careful of as they report their business tax and their sales tax, as an example. And I was excited about working with her and rolling this thing out and going to different places, because this unit literally is mobile. It's like one of these big mobile homes that you would just roll out to. It could roll out to a park or to a nonprofit, parking lot or something, anywhere in the community. But obviously,
are you referring to the VITA mobile where they go out and they help prepare tax returns, or because
you're right. It's actually used for that, and then it's also used just to do outreach. So I thought it was a great little resource, but to try to schedule that into when you only got a year to do it, it doesn't give you a whole lot of time to do a whole lot, right? That's just one example, for example.
Like I said, I see the value of wanting the position for 2 years. I don't dispute that. I just wanted to say, that. That's all.
Since you brought it up, I actually had this conversation with the controller, and she agrees.
Mr. Vasquez?
I'm sorry.
I would ask you to hold off on that part of the conversation. I am aware of it.
Okay. So anyway, that's where I'm at. But you actually just raised another option, and I think we should. And if there's others from the other members, we should look at them all and let's see which one makes sense. And more than anything, which one of these there's a consensus on from the board to move forward. And I think, Ms. Stowers, I think the one that I think there's obviously an agreement on is just clearing up the language, because the way it's written right now, it's kind of confusing. One, is this thing supposed to be agendized in December? And then two, when does it start? The rotation.
Yeah, I agree.
Rotation or election, whatever.
No matter what we decide, we need to be really clear about what we're doing, so so we don't have this confusion year after year after year.
Exactly. So that's where I'm heading with this.
Well, that's where I'm at too.
Questions?
I didn't realize no action is being taken today.
I think Member Gaines. Yes, go ahead, Member Gaines.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Vasquez. So I agree, it'd be nice to have clarification in our governance policy so that we know what the month is and what the procedure would be. But what does that look like in terms of who the chair and vice chair are over time? So could you have a situation where you'd have the same chair every year for a 4-year term? And in fact, could it go beyond that to the same chair over 2 terms if that individual is reelected? And so, I like the idea of a rotational basis because it gives people an opportunity to serve in that position, members of the board.
I hear your concern, and my only issue is that whoever the members choose to serve in this capacity, it's my recommendation that whoever that is, that person should be given the position for 2 years. That's my recommendation. Only because having gone through it myself, and like I said, I kind of identified with this at the very beginning before, when actually Member Cohen was selected to be the chair. I was proposing back then that she should have it for 2 years. But at the end of the day, it was, the way the governance was, or the way the governance is written, it doesn't give us that option. And now what I am proposing now is to put it in the option. And to answer, I guess, your question, it's at the will of the board. If the board, for whatever, it's up to you, all of us, to make that decision when it comes up for a vote. It's not an automatic that, whoever's the chair is going to obviously become the chair again.
Okay, then how do you address the issue with Member Cohen, who served 2 years, and the potential of someone else serving? So she served 1 year, and the potential of someone else serving for 2. Is there equity in that?
Well, I'm saying right now the only equity is it's actually left up to the will of the board. Because I'm proposing that we move away from the rotation. Right? So it's going to be based on where the consensus are from the members here. And at the end of the day, I guess to answer your question, I'm not really hung up on the equity issue because, for example, I'm sure everybody on the Assembly, well, you were on the Senate side, so I'm sure everybody on the Senate would love to be the Speaker pro temp, but that doesn't happen. Unless they have the consensus of that body, they won't be the chair or the president of that body. Same with whoever's the Speaker of the Assembly. I'm sure everybody would love to be the Assembly Speaker, but if they don't have the majority of the Assembly members voting them in, he or she will never be the Speaker. And that's just the reality.
So Chairman Vasquez, are you proposing to discontinue the rotation?
My option, what I'm proposing is number 3, which is that it would be kind of a hybrid system, hybrid in the sense that if there's a consensus from the members to elect one of the members to be the chair in January, he or she would hold that position for 2 years. If for some reason we're deadlocked, right, then it would revert back to the rotation.
How could we be deadlocked when there's 5 members?
Well, I'm saying it would be voted on by the elected board members, which is 4, right?
Are you saying you're going to take away the controller's right to vote?
No, she still has the right to vote.
Okay, so it can't be deadlocked. There will be 5 votes.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, the controller has the right to vote, but for example, I know in the past sometimes the controller has opted saying, you know what, I have no preference either way. So let's say she doesn't vote, and let's say we're deadlocked 2-2, for example.
Well, if she doesn't vote, if she decides not to vote.
Exactly.
And
we can spell that out.
Let's clear this up. I've never known her not to exercise her vote when it comes to the chair and vice chair. I've been her designee since she became the controller. She has not said she's not voting. She may have been neutral, and she's often neutral on who is the chair or the vice chair, but we've always cast a vote. And at one point, we made the motion for a prior member runner to be the chair. So we do vote.
I appreciate it, and I hope she does vote. I'm just saying I would leave that in, I would leave the language in there in the event, right?
I think that language is confusing because that's how I took it. Is like if you're okay in the event. I don't know how that would be.
Well, we can make it clear. We could spell it out so it's very clear that obviously all 5 have the 4 members elected in their districts plus the controller. They all have the right to vote, right? But let's say, here's a good example. Let's say just for whatever reason, maybe it isn't the controller. Maybe one of the other members decides to abstain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're deadlocked 2-2. So what happens?
Okay, I can see that I can see that possibility. Okay. I just wanted to get clarification that you weren't saying that the controller was not voting, but yeah, any member could decide not to have her vote.
I'm hoping she joins us in November, to be honest with you.
Okay. You don't want me?
Well, it's up to her, right? You're her designee, so.
No, I'm just playing. I'm getting a little goofy now.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, but you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I just want to get clarification. So then your proposal, and I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me right now. And I know it was.
I thought you were looking at this. I'm sorry.
I know I have the draft governance, but I don't have your lead-in sheet in front of me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I received it. So, but you're really looking at option 3, which you see as a vote.
Exactly.
Okay.
And basically the reason I put slash kind of a hybrid rotation is I want to make sure that we're covering all potential options. Because, let's say that does happen. Let's say, for example, you just mentioned the controller always votes. All right, let's say she votes, but for whatever reason, because it's everybody's prerogative, right? Let's say one of the members decides to abstain, which he or she has the right to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're stuck in a deadlock 2-2, what happens then?
And that's where you say if we're deadlocked for some reason,
exactly.
then the fallback position is rotating to that next district.
Exactly.
Well, I guess you're not the only ones that are talking about this. I'm quiet now. I'm starting to have a cough fest.
I'm just trying to minimize any potential problems down the road, right? That's all. Not saying it's going to happen, but I like to just err on the side of caution so we're ready to go.
As a neutral person in this conversation, I'm wondering what Vice Chair Schaefer has to say.
Vice Chair Schaefer, is he on the line?
No, I went home. This is Vice Chair Schaefer. I appreciate the views of all of you. There's a number of people up in Sacramento want to send us all home and do away with the board, and they're thinking back of the bad days of before we came along, when you had all kinds of bad publicity and people serving on the board for several years without abatement. I think the fact that we have a rotation system, which we do have now, is one of the upgrades in our operation. And it's not just giving more members an opportunity for leadership and to use their creativity, which they were elected by 10 million people or whatever to serve. It's the people they represent. I represent, according to the governor, the seniors in the state, and I represent 10 million people that live south of Los Angeles County, and they're all thinking that at some point in time I'll be chair. I do know that the people that are planning to run for office think they'll be chair at some point if there's 4 members and it's a 4-year term. And I've always considered that Member Gaines will be chair at some point when he's running for office in the year 2022. But now I realize that you want to have us have a vote for it. I don't think we should bother with the vote. I think we have something now called rotation, and we should applaud the rotation. I don't think it should be on the agenda at all. I'm sorry about that. I think the staff, which has been living with rotation now for 2 years, is all ready for rotation without anybody saying anything. They're planning to put my name on the chair slot coming up next January, and in the January of 2022, without any ado, without anything happening, all of a sudden Ted Gaines' name will appear on there, and then we get back to when you're reelected for another term, you'll be following his after Ted Gaines. We'll have District 2. Which would be, I guess, Malia, and then you'll come along. I mean, I think this is a very quality opportunity to have all of us serve. And we're not going to be out here all on our own. We do have the help of each of our colleagues. We do have the help of people that have maybe served before. I meet with several former chairs. I meet with Ernest Dronenberg regularly. I meet with Claude Parrish regularly, and both of these men have been chairman of the Board of Equalization. So there's an army of tutors out there to talk over these issues and help us do a better job. And I think each of us should have an opportunity to succeed and an opportunity to fail. And you're trying to shelter us, Chair Vasquez, never give us this opportunity. I was surprised to hear Ms. Dower say that you'll never be chair and never be vice chair. Maybe it's spelled out that you can't ever be vice chair or chair because she was never elected to the position. If that's the situation, I wouldn't be surprised if she would be neutral in whoever is chosen. And if she chooses neutrality, that might be the way to decide this, because that would leave us with a 2-2 vote. And right now we are in rotation. And with the 2-2 vote, we're never, ever going to change out of rotation. As night follows day, you're going to have District 4 follow District 3, and District 1 follow District 4, and District 2 follow District 1 as night follows day. I perceive that Member Gaines and Member Schaefer are a good solid vote to maintain the rotation, because we are the next in line and we have a job that we're getting ready to do. And I'm not sure that on the other side of the coin, we do have both Chair Vasquez and Vice Chair, former Chair Cohen. I'm not sure how Ms. Cohen would go on the matter, but I know she will have an opinion. I'm not so sure that our controller will have an opinion, because she has might just not express an opinion, which I think has happened somewhere in the sands of time. So if we do have a neutrality position on the part of the controller, I know we do have a rotation project right now that's approved. And if you don't have any more than 2 votes to change that, the rotation project is the current law and will be the law next January. And we are stuck, for better or for worse, with rotation. And I think that is one of the strengths we have, to show that we're not your father's BOE. We are a new BOE, the one that does not buy white couches on our way out of office, one that does not re-elect the same person for year after year after year as a matter of power play. I tend to look at our work as somewhat nonpartisan, although we are partisan, and I acknowledge that if I was a nonpartisan candidate like superintendent of schools, I probably wouldn't be here today, because I owe my election to the Democrats. But we have to look at our work as somewhat nonpartisan. And I think one way we sort of let people know that we're nonpartisan is that we're not afraid to have a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or whatever who is a full-fledged member happen to serve a term as our chair. Now, it's been suggested that Sacramento will ignore us if we don't put a Democrat up as our chair, and that we can never afford to have Member Gaines be the chair of the Democratic board. I think that's nonsense. I think that's bringing back the ugly politics of the prior board. I would suggest that we realize that we do have a rotation system. It's not going to change unless you get 3 votes to change it, and I don't think we have 3 votes to change it. So the rotation system, just like the little engine that could, will keep puffing along, you know, until I retire from government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Vasquez?
Member Gaines, go ahead.
Member Vasquez, yeah, I just like to appreciate the comments by Member Schaefer, and I agree with what was said. I think the rotational aspect does give the opportunity for the chair position to rotate, and I think it could be a new day in terms of how we operate as the BOE. You know, when we do take a look at this governance policy, I think we made an expectation of ourselves to try to do it right, and we're not perfect. We make mistakes, but I think year to date we've done a pretty good job, and I think things are operating better at the BOE, although we have many challenges in front of us. So thank you. I appreciate that.
No, thank you. Thank you all for your comments. Members, this is just my recommendation, obviously. And at the end of the day, I think you're both right, and especially Vice Chair Schaefer. You know, if the votes are not there, it falls back to a rotation. The only thing we do need to do is clear up some of the language, especially when this should be happening and how it should be agendized, so it does happen in a timely manner and there's no confusion. But I just want to, before we leave this item, is just be real clear that these are obviously just my opinions. You know, I'm not sure where Member Cohen sits on this, or for that matter, you know, whether the Controller Betty Yee will weigh in. So, you're right. At the end of the day, this thing will just be the recommendations, or these options, I should say, will come back to us. And hopefully in the November meeting, we'll have the participation of Member Cohen and hear her thoughts and ideas and see if there's a consensus. And if there isn't, then we continue as is.
Don't make a motion, just say that.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. Chair Vasquez,
yes.
we don't know that we're going to have Member Cohen with us. I hope we have her with us, but I don't want her to feel any obligation to prejudice herself to be with us. And to bring a little clarity out of the forest here, I would move at this moment that we adopt alternative 1 for rotation from the alternatives ahead of us.
I'll second that, Member Gaines.
All right, it's been moved and second.
Thank you.
I would just like to caution the members, and I think Member Gaines raised it, that we probably shouldn't be taking this vote without Member Cohen present. So I won't be supporting this motion. Any other thoughts from any other members? Ms. Stowers?
I'm ready to vote.
All right. Ms. Davis, if you'd please call the roll.
Chair Vasquez,
No.
Vice Chair Schaefer, Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye. Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Stowers.
No.
So the motion fails. So we will readdress this in November with these options. And hopefully Member Cohen will be in attendance, at least for this part, and have her opportunity to weigh in and see what her thoughts are. With that, Ms. Davis, if you please call the next item.
There are no further items on the agenda for today.
Okay. Is there any, well, actually, we got to take public comment, no, Ms. Davis?
Yes, we can check with AT&T to see if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a comment on this matter.
If any member would like to make comment from the phone lines, you may press 1 then 0 at this time to place yourself into queue. Seeing no one queuing up at this time.
So hearing no other public comments, members, is there any adjourning motions, any motions in memory? The only thing I was, we were constantly losing folks to this COVID. And as much as we hope we would be out of this, in some counties, it looks like it's spiking again. So I would just like to adjourn in memory of all the folks that we've lost since our last meeting due to this COVID-19 pandemic.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer.
Yes, Vice Chair.
I'd like to adjourn in memory of Carrie Fisher, the famous actress who passed away along with her mother a couple of years ago. I knew Carrie Fisher. I was attorney for Debbie Reynolds, her mother, and this is her birthday.
Well noted. Any other adjourning motions? If not, we stand adjourned at, what time is it? 2:38. And we'll see you all in November. Enjoy and stay healthy.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, staff.